Good, Dave. It is 6 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. Superintendent, if you please call the roll.
President Holt,
Present.
Clerk Grigsby,
Present.
Trustee Poole,
Here.
Trustee Travis,
Here.
Trustee Wedge.
Here. Is there any public comment on the closed session agenda items? Seeing none, it is 6 o'clock. We will recess the closed session and reconvene at 7 o'clock. Okay, it is 7 o'clock. We will reconvene here in open session. Trustee Poole, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If no action was taken in closed session, then I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second that.
All right, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sounds unanimous. And item 6, we're going to open our public hearing on the LCAP for 25-26.
All right, good evening. Jeremy and I are going to tag team our LCAP presentation this evening. The LCAP is long, but we will try to be relatively brief. Um, our goal tonight is to talk a little bit about just the LCAP generally speaking, and then talk to you about our 25-26 LCAP specifically. Take any questions you have, and we'll also talk through feedback that we've received throughout and kind of where we are in the process. Are you gonna click? Are you clicking for me? Okay. No worries. Okay, so let's start with an overview. One more slide, please, Dave. Thank you. So LCAP is a 3-year cycle. We're currently in year 2, meaning last year all of our goals were rewritten. We had new actions, all of that. For the most part, it remains the same in year 2. Some slight tweaks, but nothing drastically different. We cover 3 areas in the LCAP packet, which is attached to this board agenda item. Oh, I should say there's a QR code in the back if anyone wants to scan that. There were some modifications recommended by PCOE between posting and tonight. So we have made those modifications. We'll talk through those this evening, but there's a QR code in the back and a hard copy of the updated, and then board should have everything emailed. Sorry, go back one more time, Dave. Thank you. So there's 3 parts to the LCAP. The first is the budget overview for parents, which is really the pie chart that summarizes all of the tables in the back. We do a review of the last year. So we look back, we take our metrics, we talk about what worked, what didn't, and what modifications we're going to do moving forward. And that is the updates for 2025-26 section. We're always looking at outcome data. So our goals are driven by actions. Those actions are tied to budgetary dollar amounts. And then we use outcome data to see whether or not those actions were successful. All right, now I'm ready for the next one. Thank you. All right, so we start that review of data back in January, and we presented our mid-year data points to you in February. We also gather input from the community. We do that throughout the year, but we kind of ramp it up in the spring as the LCAP is more prepared and ready to go. Some of the ways we do that is by surveying our whole community and then having community meetings with certain stakeholder groups. So DLAC is District English Learner Advisory Committee. That's our district-wide committee. We also have site-specific ELACs at EV Kane and Auburn L, given numbers of, that's dependent on number of English learners. And then we have our LCAP Parent Advisory Committee, which this year included students. We had 7th and 8th grade students as part of that. And we meet regularly with those groups to get feedback and go through the LCAP. We determine areas to refine based on that feedback starting in March, and we continue that refinement through May. And then we present the draft LCAP. We're doing that this evening. And then take any feedback you might have this evening as a board. We also reached out to our PAC specifically. We didn't get any further feedback from them. And then we give it to PCOE. We've incorporated their feedback already. And tomorrow it will be brought forward for adoption with any modifications made based on tonight. All right, next one, Dave. Thank you. I'm not going to read these to you, but we do have 3 goals. These haven't changed. They were drafted last year and are part of the 3-year LCAP. The general areas are academic progress in goal 1, safety in goal 2, and educational partner engagement in goal 3. And I should say, if you have any questions along the way, stop me. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going. I want to make sure we talk about the LCAP is a standalone document, but it doesn't cover standalone items. So there's continuity and overlap between LCAP, your board goals, and the state of California priorities. So with our first goal in academic progress, that links to your board goal related also to academic performance, our HR personnel goals to recruit, retain, and reward staff. And then culture, climate, and fiduciary responsibility are basically throughout all 3 goals. Our LCAP goal 1 also link to our state priorities 1, 2, 4, 5, and 7, and you'll see what those stand for up there. Tomorrow evening, I will present our state priorities, or what's called our local indicators. Essentially, the state collects data on some of these priorities, but not on others, and districts have to self-report. And the requirement is that you provide that as an informational item at the meeting where the LCAP is approved. So we'll do that tomorrow evening, and we'll talk a little bit more about what those state priorities are at that point and what they mean. For safety, there is a physical safety and a emotional safety component to goal 2. So our facilities board goal is related there as well as culture and climate and fiduciary responsibility. And that links to state priorities 1, 3, 5, 6, and 8. And last but not least, educational partner engagement links to climate, culture, and fiduciary responsibility board goals and our parent involvement state priority, which is number 3. All right. So first things that we look at are reflections. And so what we're going to talk about today are general highlights for each of these goals. And then Jeremy will go over the dollar amount that we actually expended through our LCAP and our contributing items. So let's start with goal 1, general highlights. Remember, this is our academic progress goal. We had 99.54% of our teachers appropriately credentialed and placed with students this year. That was an increase of 2.54% over last year. And that's mainly due to unfilled positions filled with long-term subs that may not have been credentialed in the area in which they taught. We were able to reduce that number this year so that our overall appropriately credentialed percentage went up. We also have staff development as part of this goal because we want to make sure our staff is prepared to deliver curriculum. And so we revamped the staff development day based on staff feedback between November and April. We talked the better alignment with what our staff needs were. We had development of human resource processes this year to recruit, hire, and retain high quality staff. And we also had the addition of our iReady diagnostic assessment platform. That was new to us this year. It replaced our STAR diagnostic from previous. And we had corresponding training for staff so they knew how to do that. We're ramping that up. We're rolling out more of iReady next year, but this year we just used the assessment platform. Because we had that this year, one of the changes you'll see in this year's LCAP under goal 1 is that we added metrics that come from iReady. They're good progress monitoring metrics because we get them throughout the year instead of just waiting till the end when we get CASP data. So one thing we did change is adding those metrics in. So you'll see that there's no year 2 change data because this year was a baseline and we note that in the LCAP. Any questions on that one? Okay, goal 2, safety. We did a lot with proactive safety measures. So behavioral threat assessment management training for school site teams, as well as all of our credentialed staff on how to recognize things you might want to put a referral in through BTAM. We will train classified staff in the fall. We also did active threat response, otherwise known as ALICE, with certificated staff. Again, classified staff will be in the fall. And our local law enforcement, so APD and Placer County Sheriff, did that training for us in April. We also had consistent site-based wellness team meetings to address referrals from staff, students, and parents. That happened on a weekly basis by site. And then we increased our positive responses to school as a safe place for students in our survey questions through California Healthy Kids Survey. Our staff reported at 76%. It's a 4-point scale, so we count anyone that says agree or strongly agree, which is a 3 or 4. For staff, that was 76%, which is an increase of 50% from last year. Students was 56% with an increase of 15% from last year. And parents were 89%, which is also a 15% increase from last year. And goal 3, engagement. This is about how we're engaging our community, primarily parents, but we do look at our community more broadly as well. So we had improved attendance at our DLAC, that English Learner Advisory Committee at the district level. We had 7 additional families attending this year as compared to about 2 to 3 families on average last year. We had an increase in positive responses to another one of our California Healthy Kids Survey questions. School actively seeks the input of parents before making important decisions. Parents answered that at 65% at a 3 or a 4, and that's an increase of 12% from last year. We also, like I said, added student members to our LCAP Parent Advisory Committee, and they were on it. They gave us some really good feedback and were able to implement some things that they told us they liked and wanted us to keep, as well as things they were hoping we could look at in the future. And then we had baseline data collected for our annual school climate and culture survey. That was new this year. We did a fall and a spring data collection. We will continue that moving forward so that we can continue to look at progress in those areas as well. Questions on those? Okay, budget, you're up, Jeremy.
Great, thank you. So I'll just be talking about the budget a little bit. So last year at this time, we had planned expenditures and we anticipated a little more expenditures. The trick with LCAP is they're principally directed at supplemental concentration dollars. And so what we want to do is make sure that we spend those so that we don't have to carry them over each year. And so we purposely budgeted a little high so that we could make sure that we came in on budget and appropriately. Because there's a lot of expenses in there that are supplies and materials and things that either get bought or are more expensive than we thought. So we try to plan for that. And overall, throughout the year, the amounts changed through first interim, second interim. And so we came out right about on target. So for the first goal, we spent about $1.7 million. Goal 2, 1.6 million. And then goal 3, 35,000, just a little more than what we expected at 22. And all in all, about 3.4 million. So next slide is the one that really makes a difference. It's the contributing actions table. And these are those supplemental concentration dollars that they show up in the general fund unrestricted amount, but we really can only spend them on LCAP goals. And so those items, we plan to spend 1.7 and we are expected to spend 1.6 million. Goal 2, we plan to spend 1.5 and we're right about 1.3. You know, and those are due to vacancies or positions we can't fill. So maybe supplies that we couldn't, you know, acquire or didn't need. And then goal 3, it still stayed the same at 35,000. So we plan to spend 3.3 million, and the total we spend is right about 3 million. And for the supplemental concentration dollars that we receive, we're off about $9,000 in my estimation. We won't know the exact amount until September when we close the books and all the numbers are final. But it's good to spend that money so that we don't have to carry it over year to year. We spend it on the dollars for the kids in that year. Do you have any questions on budget? Okay. Oh, it's going. Okay. Next. Projected revenues for 25-26. So the total LCFF funds are 18.6 million. Supplemental concentration are at 3.2 million. So a little higher than the 3 million we had this year, and that was with some carryover. So state funds that we receive, that's 4.7 million, local funds 2.3, federal funds about $1 million. And I'll talk more about these numbers when I do the budget presentation. Total projected revenue for the district is about 26,745,000.
Okay, so now we move into the part of the LCAP that looks at upcoming year. These are the numbers that Jeremy just went over in terms of projected revenue. Go ahead, one more slide, Dave, please. Thank you. So just like we talked about with each goal, what our kind of areas of strength were and positive, now we're going to talk about where we're focusing and need to put our energies in the coming year to continue some growth. One of the things we'll be focusing on next year is the usage of adopted curriculum and core subjects. We presented this to teachers in April, had some really good conversation around it, and we're prepping our PD, our PLC time, and a lot of the work that we're doing in the coming year to make sure that we're supporting staff to implement curriculum 70% of their class time. Those are linked to actions 1.1 and 1.6. We're also going to support staff. Oh, sorry, I kind of combined those. Support staff with their implementation of regular curriculum usage. That one is specifically tied to metric 1.8. And then we're going to scale up progress monitoring data for ELA and math using iReady. So we're testing out kindergarten. You know, is it worth testing kindergarten? We tried that in the spring. So we're revamping the timeline also so that it better aligns with some feedback from teachers on when to do those assessments. And then we're also utilizing iReady now for some intervention tools linked to wherever that student tests with ELA and math and where their holes are and where they need building. So those are linked to metrics 1.9 and 1.10, which are our new metrics around iReady. And then we talked about this last time with the use of SIPs for breeding intervention. We're going to be adopting that at all school sites, and that falls in action 1.1. All right. Oh.
So goal number 1, the fun job part of the job is putting all the numbers for the plan, just to see what we can make happen. And when we look at goal 1.1, it's combined at $535,000, and that includes some of the learning recovery block grant funds that we spend that we have to have in the LCAP. And the contributing dollars are the money that we get from supplemental concentration. So those are for those supports. 1.2 summer school. Last year it was contributing at about $90,000. And this year it's going to be not contributing because we have ELOP funds that we can put summer school out of. And I'll talk more about ELOP later and the increase in funding projected. 1.3 is language acquisition. That's all contributing through the supplemental concentration dollars. Technology one-to-one devices, that's basically all of our technology supports that provide those one-to-one devices, all contributing. Class size reduction at 1.5. This one, this is the one where we increased it for the 3 teachers that we wanted to keep on at EV Kane for class size reduction, and so that we could provide those additional supports to those students there. 1.6, maintain instructional materials. That is all restricted money. So our restricted lottery money that we would buy curriculum with.
Okay. So goal 2 is around safety. And here are some things we'll be working on next year. We're going to continue our focus on climate and culture building. There's some additional professional development happening with PBIS, which is positive behavior intervention and support. That's action 2.3. We have some tier 1 training happening for all site teams, and then district level training on how to scale up PBIS and interweave it with some of our other things such as academic data, attendance, things like that. So we're all kind of working as one combined team. That's called IPBIS or integrated PBIS. And so our district team will be going through that training as well under action 2.3. And then we'll do some connection and choice assemblies with a mentor component for 8th graders under action 2.6. This is Ron James. If you heard about Ron James, I think some of you were there when, I know Emily and I were at Skyridge, I think, when he was there with the 6th graders. But he was brought in at EV Kane to start, kind of spread across the school campuses, and it's been a really positive piece for staff, for school sites, and kids really enjoy it too and get a lot out of it. So we'll be continuing that this year, and it's newly added within the LCAP now. We also are looking at home to school transportation. We're running a route, which we've talked about previously for Auburn L that'll start next year, and that's under action 2.4. And then we are considering elective class modifications. This is actually directly related to our LCAP PAC student members' feedback around what they're looking for. They talked about STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics classes, team sports, and or creative writing were their top goals when they surveyed their peers in terms of electives. So it looks like we're going to be able to do a STEAM elective, and we just recently are posting for that as part of our wheel. So that's under action 2.7 as well.
So the budget side of goal 2, 2.1 is the sports. And so we got it up and running, and we spent a little more than we did. We spent a little more last year getting it up and running. So we're projected total contributing supplemental concentration to $105,000. So when you see them, just so I can explain, it's not doubling it. So combined would be other funds that would be contributed to that same goal action. But all of these funds are supplemental concentration. Library media centers for 2.2, that covers library supplies and staffing. 2.3 is student support. That's a lot of our employees that do the student support that provide those services. 1.1 million. Transportation. This is where we added the buses, the busing routes that were going to Auburn Elementary School. So we increased this. Last year, we didn't spend that much. So it's going to cost about $200,000 for the buses at Auburn Elementary. And the 30,000 would be the additional buses for sports and activities. Safe facilities 2.5. None of that comes out of the supplemental concentration. Those are our facility dollars that we spend to maintain our facilities for safe campuses. 2.6, that's the Ron James, the MTSS, and some of the, I believe, software that goes with supporting that program. And 2.7, the combined is 520,000. The contributing is 282,000. So the combined dollar amount is the Prop 28 arts and music. So that's in the LCAP so that we can provide that. It's about roughly $200,000 a year. And that supports 80% staff and 85% staff and 15% supplies. So we have a lot of good art support.
Okay, our last goal, goal 3 around engagement. We're going to continue our outreach events and our advisory committees in outgoing years. We do have those student representatives and purposely had 7th graders on who will continue for a second term as 8th graders. And then we'll replace our 8th graders with new 7th graders. So we kind of have a continuing stream. That's action 3.1. And then one of the feedback pieces we got from our community members in terms of trying to increase and bolster attendance at some of our events is that it may be a nice thing to have outreach events that reach their community closer to where they live. So they were talking about using other community spaces besides schools where families may already be comfortable or have some sort of tie. And so that's something else we're looking at also related to action 3.1.
So goal 3, last year we spent about 32,000. So this year we budgeted 35,000 just so that we can provide the same and maybe additional supports for those partner engagement. Next slide. Expenditure summary for the whole LCAP. LCFF funds, 3.9 million. Other state funds, that would be the Learning Recovery Block Grant, Prop 28, that's 962,000. Local funds for maintenance, that would be our maintenance fund that supports maintenance and operations. Federal funds, that's at 60,000, and total funds at $5.6 million for our LCAP. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. For it to queue up.
Oh, you're right.
So
Sorry.
before you go to that, so now we'll open the public hearing on LCAP for 25-26. And is there any comment on the LCAP for the hearing? All right, not seeing any, so we will close the hearing on LCAP. And now we can move on to 6B, the public hearing on the 25-26 proposed budget.
Welcome to the budget presentation. So I want to start out just recapping the state proposed budget and what that means and what happened from the last time I presented it in January. We had the May revise, and the Prop 98 estimate is $114 billion, which is $4.3 billion lower. And I'll talk about that in the slide next. 1.8 billion in LCFF deferrals in 2026. And my estimation is that our cash flow will not be impacted. So what I can show you on the graph, there's a small amount that they want to defer in June and pay us in July or August. And in my estimation, we'll have enough cash to be fiscally solvent during those times. The mandatory public school stabilization account withdrawal due to Prop 98 decline. So they would just, reduce the fund. Impact of declining capital gains revenue will mean possible uncertainty in the future years. And so if the state budget outlook, they're expecting inflation, and if there's not enough tax revenue and people can't afford to buy stuff, then that affects revenues. Next slide. So the Prop 98 guarantee and spending, you can see it over from 23, 24, 24, 25, and 25, 26. And in 24, 25, the open blank area is what they're underfunding Prop 98. And so there are actively groups, people, trying to advocate for more funding for schools. And so we'll know probably, in the next couple days what that means or what they decide. For 25, 26, the yellow, the 2.4 billion, that would be the deferral. And so overall state revenue wise, it's such a small amount at the end of the year that when it carries over, it may not affect too many people adversely. The next slide. The Prop 98 district charter LCFF entitlement chart here, it shows what we receive per student. And I just want to go down about midway to the TK add-on for staff. It looks like that's going to pass. It went through the legislature and they, they want to fund that. So a good chance it's going to be in the budget. It's not included in the numbers here tonight, but it would mean about another 350,000 for our district for that extra funding we would get. And so all the numbers I present tonight would be just a little higher for revenue. Next slide. So expanded learning, that would be the biggest impact to the district budget. They're providing 4.52 billion. And what they're proposing is that if you're above 55% unduplicated, and right now we're right about 70%, then we would go to tier 1 funding. Currently, we get less than $1,000 per student, and it would go to $2,750 per student. So it would be almost 2.7 million in the ELOP fund to run our programs. So that's a little bit uncertain. I put the numbers in the budget based on, planning. We need to plan for spending those because that's quite a bit of money. If we don't get it, we'll, the chances are we're going to get more. It may not be the full 2.7, but it could be close. Next slide. These items didn't include in the budget because of the uncertainty. The TK proposed increase to funding. That would be that $350,000 that looks like we're going to add to the budget if it passes. Teacher workforce shortage funding. I think that's around 100,000 to our district. Literacy instructional funding. That's lesser amount, around $30,000 support to our district. The discretionary block grant would be approximately $400,000. The TK English learner support, I'm not sure on the dollar amount on that. And universal meals for the kid grants, we're not sure on that amount. So when you add it up, there could be an additional $1 million to our budget with all of these things, if they pass in the next few days. And they're not included in the numbers. So our numbers would increase depending on what passes. Next slide. So changes from 24-25 to now at estimated actuals. And so when we look at estimated actuals, we're projecting what the balance or what's going to be spent in September. And when you look at things that happened over the year that we couldn't plan for, didn't know about, these are things that we had to be prepared for. The PCO build back for the county operated special education program, based on what our needs were, they estimated at the beginning of the year $1 million. And just a few months ago, it kept creeping up to 1.4 million. So those are things that we have to be prepared for with our reserves. The PCOE error in bill back. So they undercharged us last year and we had to pay that this year. another $224,000. The negotiated salary increase for employees, we didn't know what that was going to be at the beginning of the year, but we came up and it cost the district about $350,000. Increase in single payer health insurance cap at $700,000. That cost the district about, $15,000, not that much. And the one that was really kind of a surprise is it's the JPA for AB 218 insurance liability. And it's increased $1 million. I mean, not $1 million, 100,000. And that is insurance liability for past years that we were part of the JPA. So all of the districts that are part of that have sexual molestation lawsuits have to pay for the cost of that. And even though we may or may not have had lawsuits associated with our district, we're on the hook for it. Last year, the bill was 90,000. This next year, it's almost 200,000. So we're gonna have to plan for that, and I have it in the budget. Next slide. So our budget revenue calculation, we projected our attendance for next year and declining enrollment with about 1,290 students enrolled. And our ADA attendance based on 92% would be about 1,200 ADA. Based on 3-year averaging, we will get funding for 1,308 students. So we're going to be funded over 100% of our ADA for next year based on prior 3-year averaging. We do want to increase ADA. We want to not have chronic absenteeism, but our funding is just on a slow decline so that we can make adjustments over the years. Our unduplicated pupil percentage is 69%, and our lottery revenue is 191 per ADA and 82 per restricted. So LCFF combined resources is 18.6 million. Federal revenue is about $1 million. Other state revenues are about 4 million. Other local revenues at 2, and total at 26.7 million. So what that looks like for unrestricted dollars is most of that blue, or all of that blue, is our LCFF resources. That's the ADA attendance. Other state funds are grants and other funding sources that could be discretionary block grants. Other local would be just revenue that we get in the district. Next graph. Next slide. Okay, combined revenue. Oh no, back, sorry. So when you add all of it up, 69.9% are LCFF resources, federal is at 3.8%. And so if we get an impact from federal revenue funding sources, we'd have to find out how to make up that 3.8% or adjust our budget accordingly. Other state revenues, that's the learning recovery block grants. Those are the other discretionary block grants that we get at 17%. And other local would be local revenues. Next slide. So our expenditures for unrestricted are about 6.4 million for certified salaries, certificated salaries, and combined at 8.2 million. And what's interesting about that number is it's slightly less than last year. And there was a big changeover in staff. And so when staff that are paid higher leave, staff that come in cost less. And so we pull the numbers from our system and calculate what that would be. And it ends up being a cost savings, which is a big, big deal, so that we can account for that. The variation in salary from a beginning teacher to a top end teacher is about $50,000 or so. Classified salaries. This stayed about the same from last year. So 2 million for unrestricted and 3.5 for restricted. Employee benefits, 2.8 for unrestricted, 4.9 for combined. Books and supplies, unrestricted, about 288,000 is budgeted. And combined with restricted, 933,000. And that would be for restricted lottery supplies for curriculum. And those types of things. Services and operating expenditures. Unrestricted is about 3.3 million, and then combined with restricted is 6.8. Now, a lot of those are our contractor costs for employee vacancies. So if we could fill positions, we could, those would go into salaries and potentially reduce costs for the district. Capital outlay and depreciation, we budgeted 387,000. Other outgoing transfers, 1.3 million. And that would be our the county program cost for the special ed. So total expenditures, I'll just talk about the negative numbers. Those are actually transfers out. So a negative number means increase. So coming in from restricted funds, those would increase our general fund. So they're not actually negative. Total expenditures at 26.2 million. So next page with the graph, you can see just a breakdown of where each one of those categories falls and how it relates to the budget. Combined expenditures. You'll notice the big orange is the services, and that's where contractor costs for employee vacancies are. And it would transfer to employee salaries if we could fill those positions. All right, next slide. Major contributions. Special education at 4.1 million from unrestricted. So those are taking unrestricted dollars that are allocated to everybody and funding special education programs. A restricted maintenance account, we're required to contribute 3% of our budget to the restricted maintenance ongoing for keeping our facilities running. Next slide. Cash flow. So when we look at cash flow, we look at all of the money coming across the months of the year as revenues come in. And through 25-26, from 25-26 to 27-28, we predict positive cash balances and able to make the 3% reserve standard. The board resolution approved up to 17% for reserve for economic uncertainties. And so this year 25-26, we're predicting 5.22%, 26-27, 16.6, and 27-28 at 16.29. And in the out years, we're predicting, steadily declining enrollment at the same rate that we are now. And if we get students, we would just add to our budget, but we're planning on the declining enrollment. And so in those out years, we, with less students, we predict less employees. So we make those adjustments as we know more next year. And those, definitely get brought to our negotiating partners and the board to talk about, how to maneuver and make those changes. So last slide, conclusion. AUSD remains fiscally sound with balanced budget and stable cash flow. The multi-year projection remains financially stable in current and subsequent years, and the district has a positive certification and is able to meet obligations through 27-28. Questions?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for your hard work.
All right, so it is now 7:40 and we'll open the public hearing on the 25-26 Auburn Union School District proposed budget. Is there any comment on the budget? And it is 7:40, and we will close the hearing on the proposed budget. Moving to item 7, public comment on items not on tonight's agenda.
I don't believe I have comment cards on items not on the agenda. Any public comment cards need to come in? Okay, okay.
Not seeing any. So then moving to 8A and comments from AUTA.
Good evening, school board members and Superintendent Meyer. Over the past years, our school district has experienced a significant loss of teaching staff, which continues to impact the quality of education we provide. Despite efforts, we are still not fully staffed for the upcoming school year. This shortage threatens to increase class size, reduce course offerings, and place additional burdens on the remaining educators. We urge the board to prioritize recruitment and retention initiatives to ensure that every classroom is staffed with qualified and supported teachers. We understand that the board is currently going to be discussing the potential removal of the district's diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. As educators committed to fostering a positive and supportive learning environment for all students, we believe that DEI initiatives are crucial in promoting respect, understanding, and equal opportunities. Removing this policy risks undermining the progress we have made toward creating an inclusive community where every student and staff member feels valued and supported. We encourage the board to carefully consider the long-term impacts of our students' educational experiences and the culture of our students by making decisions regarding DEI. On that note, I wanted to discuss potential impacts on our students. Increased discrimination and inequality without DEI policies, protecting against discrimination based on race, gender, and disability, and other identities that have weakened the vulnerable students and leave greater risks of bias, harassment, and exclusion. Widening educational disparities, DEI initiatives help ensure equitable access and resources and opportunities. Removing these policies could exacerbate existing gaps between our students from different socioeconomic and racial backgrounds. Reduce support for our students with disabilities. DEI policies often encompass compliance with laws like IDEA, ensuring specialized education and services. Without these policies, students with disabilities may lose critical supports and negatively affecting our students and development. On staff, decreased teacher support and retention. DEI policies contribute to a positive workplace culture by promoting respecting and reducing discrimination. Removing many of them may lead to a less supportive environment, increasing burnout and turnover, especially among staff from underrepresented groups. Challenging in compliance and training. Without DEI frameworks, schools may struggle to meet federal and civil rights requirements, leading in legal risks and confusion about best practices in equality and inclusion. For our community, negative community impacts. Removing DEI policies can erode trust between families, students, and schools, particularly in our diverse communities, potentially leading to increased conflicts and reduced community engagement. When we talk about state funding for our schools, it is generally provided by the state with policies and may not align with federal objectives on DEI. For example, California has publicly refused to comply with federal order demanding certification that districts have eliminated DEI programs, emphasizing that there is no state or federal law outlawing the broad concepts of diversity, equity, and inclusion. California Department of Education has defended DEI efforts and criticized the federal request as vague and legally questionable. To date, no other school district in Placer County have removed their DEI statements or policy. This suggests the local consensus of commitment to maintaining DEI efforts despite federal pressure. The lack of removal from other districts highlights that Auburn Union School District would be an outlier if it chose to eliminate the DEI policy. Maintaining DEI policies align with a broader regional and state stance supporting inclusion and equality. It also reflects a commitment to fostering an inclusive educational environment, which many educators and community members view as essential for student success and staff support. In summary, taking away DEI policies risk undermining protections and supports critical to fostering equitable, inclusive, and high-quality education for all of our students, while also negatively impacting staff morale and retention. It could lead to increased discrimination and widen achievement gaps in our students and loss of vital resources and support. The Auburn Union Teachers Association remains dedicated to collaborating with the school board and its administration to support policies that promote equity and excellence in education. In solidarity, Sarah Liebert, AUTA President.
And do we have CSEA tonight? I don't see them. So moving to consent agenda, I move that we approve tonight's consent agenda.
Second.
And clerk, if you please call a roll call vote.
President Holt,
Aye.
Clerk Grigsby, aye. Trustee Poole,
Aye.
Trustee Travis,
Aye.
and Trustee Wedge.
Aye.
Unanimous. Moving to 10A, the 25-26 wellness plan.
Ready? It has a wonderful presentation for us. So we, as Child Nutrition, one of our goals was to update our wellness policy for this year. And this is what we went over, and this is what we're asking for approval for. Go ahead, Dave. We're gonna go over what is the wellness policy, and a wellness policy overview, not just what it is, but what's in it, what you guys are approving and what we're gonna do. And then also the next steps, what happens after this, how do we implement it, and what else is required by the state. All right, the wellness policy is a state mandated policy that governs food being served and sold on school campus during the school day outside of the school breakfast and lunch program. So anything at all that's given, whether it be parties or events, whether it be sports, depending on if it's during the school hours. So school day is defined as midnight to 30 minutes after your school time. So if you have a volleyball game 2 hours after, or a dance, 2 or 3 hours after the end of school, smart snacks or the wellness policy don't apply unless we want to create or put that into your wellness policy. Not only does it relate to our food, but it also has guidelines about recess, physical education, curriculum, and fundraisers. Next slide, please. All right, this will be the fun part. So smart snack compliant, the main overview of wellness policy is going to be smart snacks, right? You're going to hear this a lot. Smart snack compliant. Is your food smart snack compliant? And everybody's going to go, what is that? Right? All food must meet the minimum requirements being smart snack compliant. Before bringing food on campus or having that event, ask if that food is a smart snack compliant. How do you know, right? What makes it smart snack compliant? Does it fall under one of the following criteria, right? Is it a fruit? Is it a vegetable? Is it a whole grain? Is it a meat or meat alternative? Is it a dairy item? Anything like sugar, if the first item is sugar, it's not going to fall under your smart snack compliances, okay? Then not only do you have to meet what the component is, you also have to meet the calorie, the sodium, the sugar standards for smart snacks. So it doesn't mean it can't have any sugar, but sugar can't be your first item on there, okay? That means it's not meeting their minimum. Let me do the next slide. So what's really cool is the USDA actually provided a calculator for you. So if you want to go on, and that was actually linked originally where it says Smart Snack Calculator, and you can put in your product and let you know whether or not it's Smart Snack compliant or not. So it's really simple. It's access. It's free to everybody. You log on and it'll tell you, well, what is it? Is it fall under an entree, a snack? Any of those things you select and you continue. And then at the end of it, it's going to tell you whether it's compliant or not compliant. So everybody's asking about our snacks, right? What's really important about them. And they're like, well, how are you having Rice Krispies, right? Rice Krispies are something, rice is the first ingredient in it. So we can serve Rice Krispies. The sugar intake is under the standard for the state and USDA qualifications, right? So those things can meet the standard. So some of the things that I brought, right? We have things like graham crackers, goldfish. We have now, like grandma cookies are in stores, right? But these ones are whole grains. So everything we serve has to have 50% whole grains if it's a grain item in order to be served. So it can't just be white flour. It doesn't look, it has to be 51%. So there's differences in all of our items. So all these would be approved. This is the only one that I don't purchase. This is from somebody else that had a snack. And we put it through the thing and it's approved. Okay?
You guys are welcome to them. Some of the things that aren't approved, even though these are really healthy, they don't meet the fat content, right? When I put them through, fat is too much. It's over 35%. Same thing with this. This is the same brand as one of the fig bars in there, but because their first listed item is sugar, it doesn't meet the qualification. Okay, so there's differences in something. Now popcorn, this one has too much fat. However, it doesn't mean there isn't popcorn out there. The USDA does not have a comprehensive every single item that is approved and not approved. The best thing to do is for our parents and our teachers to use the Smart Snack calculator. If the schools or teachers would like Smart Snacks, all of the items that we receive are Smart Snack compliant, are USDA compliant, so you don't have to worry about it, right? Are we able to get other items? Yes. We can get ice cream that is Smart Snack compliant. There's a snow cone company I think schools like to use. I think snow cone. They are Smart Snack compliant. They go through the USDA approved. Anything we have on the campus generally that goes. Okay, so we're meeting all those standards already. One of the other differences is like our cereals, right? We serve Lucky Charms. We serve Cocoa Puffs, right? It looks exactly the same. It is. Our differences is when you look at our nutritional values, 25% less sugar. Now these can still meet on some of it, but when you look at the differences in our labels, it's going to be less sugar than what's sold in stores. Okay, so it's still yummy and it's still so next year will be a new scale for sugar, much lower. Something like Lucky Charms may not meet that scale. They're already working on a new recipe, so it does. Right, everything we're getting will be Smart Snack compliant, or they're not going to make it or serve it, and I won't serve it to the kids either. Okay, so yeah, we can serve some things that look really cool or look like we get Smart Snack compliant, or it's USDA compliant. Okay. Any questions real quick about that? Big question here. People love food. Food that is meant, so if food is meant to be consumed on the school campus during the school day, then it has to be Smart Snack compliant. However, if it's meant to be consumed afterwards, like cookie dough, right? It's not meant to be consumed at all. It's meant to be cooked at home. Then those can still be a fundraiser. We also have other things in our wellness policy where it shows other fundraisers we can do. We've done things like kind of like a dunk tank for the principals. You get so many, you could do a dunk tank, right? You know, you can do flowers or leis, you can do candles. There's lots of different fundraisers, but the ones that are meant to be consumed, like DC troopers used to have the chocolate candy bars, right? They would sell them on school campus. They're not supposed to do that. They can sell after school, but they're not supposed to sell on campus. It doesn't meet the Smart Snacks. Next. We do currently have a district wellness policy. The board approved it in 2018 and it's currently standing. It's going to continue on until the next board approves it. Okay. It was requested that wellness policy be updated, the new laws or anything that has come out. So we went ahead and worked on that, and that's what I looked at this year. We put it together last year, and then we had to have our committee meetings we're required to have for a year. The committee went over it. We talked about the questions that could come up from recess times to what the definition is, what it looks like. We had those conversations. They said this looks good, and then we're presenting it to you to get approval. Once the wellness policy is approved, an assessment will be done for the 25-26 school year. It's also known as the triennial assessment. Every 3 years, the wellness policy is supposed to have an assessment, and we haven't complied with it yet. We've had so many directives move. That. So our goal for next year will to be compliant with the state and make sure that this happens and that by the end of the year. I'll also post it on the webpage. And then this is just to be compliant with the thing. We'll have a whole breakdown of what it looks like. It's a big packet of, you know, who's doing this, where are we getting this, what goals. That will be presented at a board meeting. So we do need your board approval for the wellness policy so we can go forward with our next steps. We do want to be compliant with the state, and we appreciate all of your support. Thank you. Any questions or comments or concerns?
I had a couple of questions.
Sure.
As I read through the wellness plan. One, just wondering what approved water bottles are, because that was the language used in there.
So yeah, approved water bottles, it's really any water bottle. We just, Jeremy had a good point. It's not gonna be like a recycled alcohol bottle. It's not gonna be glass, right? Those are the only things. And if we can definitely go ahead and like restate that or finish defining that if you'd like.
Yeah, no worries.
um,
I think leaving it broad like that is okay. Leave it to the principal's discretion, superintendent. I just didn't know if there was something
No,
defined
there's
that
not.
we were or we're not doing.
Yeah, there's not like a specific school one. It was just we don't want to have them having something that has something that's not appropriate on it. Or if it's glass, we really don't want glass because it's not safe, but it is at the principal's discretion.
And then my other question from page 8 was just wondering how, I just moved away from it. How are culturally relevant activities defined?
So for child nutrition, how I would be defined on how I would understand it is we would recognize the culture. Like we do have some, for example, Indian students. So maybe I could take a day and offer a meal that was specifically to their culture and allow them to experience and allow all the students to offer it. That way we're including them and having other students understand served in the different things. So there's that, and for curriculum and other things that I let you with the principals and the superintendent.
But for the purposes of this, because that language came from somewhere, was that language that you came up with, or was that language provided by
So this is
sample?
provided by our sample policy.
Okay, and did they define it? Like, did the USDA define it?
No,
Okay.
this is what we got from the USDA.
Okay, so super. I'd be curious to see how they define it
Okay.
down the line. Does anybody else have any questions? We're gonna have a problem.
Or, so I honestly don't. Well, not, I mean, I know how. People sound. Decide to do that, you're being more restrictive for everything. Right, so now you're gonna take away the graham crackers, you're gonna take away the other cookies that are compliant.
Mhm.
So yeah, if you would like to be more restrictive, we can't be less restrictive. But it would limit the child nutrition department a lot. And so those things that we like to do once in a while, like 100% slushies that are 100% juice,
Mhm.
right? It'd be really nice to have those. It's still gonna have some sort of sugar. Now, I know that has added sugar, so it's different than a fructose.
Right.
But you are going to limit that. And there's still things being looked at even legislatively wise. So not only is your sugar content coming down for next year, they still look at things like dyes and other types of sugar and sugar additives. So they even include additives like whether it be high fructose corn syrup, agave, honey, all that stuff. That's considered an added sugar,
Mhm.
and that they also have standards for that as well. So
Right.
we have to meet that.
My problem with it is that we're pumping kids full of sugar and then sending them to class and expecting them to sit there and learn. And that just is counterintuitive to me.
So the only
And it's not just breakfast, it's lunch or any snack or, after school snack. It applies across the board. Essentially, though, we're handing kids 2 full meals full of sugar.
So Rice Krispie Treats is a one-off thing. It's not something
know.
we serve all the time. It's only served for testing or for special occasions. Like when the middle schoolers want to purchase a snack.
Right.
So it's not something we serve with breakfast. It's not something we serve with lunch. Now, once in a while, we might serve the pretzels. Well, pretzels goes with one of our meals, or we might. Where's my thing at? Over there. We might serve the graham crackers just to give them an extra surprise once a month or something. But we generally don't serve something like Rice Krispie Treats unless we're really trying to treat the end of the year or something. Or requested that they have Rice Krispie Treats.
Right.
That would be at the discretion of the principals when they need it for testing. So Sometimes they do get a little bit of sugar, but it is still within the standards. And if you want to do better, you don't want to offer it, that's something that we can definitely
Yeah.
talk about and go over.
Yeah, I just really feel like 4 types of sugar in one treat is just excessive. And my guess is that most of these fall, if they're all smart snacks, they probably all fall under the same type of ingredient list.
It could, absolutely, but you're also got to look at how much of the whole. So like if you have 1 ounce, how many, which is about 28 grams, if I remember correctly, you know, how many of those grams is actually the sugar,
Mhm.
right? I believe if I remember correctly, you can have up to 35% of that 28 grams be a part of the sugar. If you're below that, which majority of our products are below that standard, then that is an acceptable standard for them. And that's how it's measured. So it's measured as a whole. It's not measured as the number of ingredients.
Yeah.
Can you speak to how often, because because you're talking about smart snacks,
Right.
but I definitely know when I'm on campus and seeing their meals, these aren't their meals. So when are kids getting these snacks, I guess?
So right now, like during regular school year, these specific snacks, like a Rice Krispie treat, is going to be during testing. They're going to want graham crackers and goldfish in those. We also have after school snacks. A lot of times those are going to be a fruit, a grain, and a vegetable. A lot of times it's usually grain heavy, and it can also, it's just a component of 2 things, of the 5 components, right?
Mhm.
So we always do that. Usually it's not Rice Krispies, it's usually a graham cracker, a cracker, a cheese stick, a fresh fruit, a fresh vegetable. So those are usually those after school snacks that you get. Like, so Rice Krispies is going to be something like, hey, we would like it for the snacks for testing, or hey, we're having a special day, we want to reward them. So it's not really served with our meals, and it's not served on a regular basis.
And Nicole, also to clarify, you know, these smart snacks, these are what we can bring if it's our student's birthday, campus too, right? So you can't bring homemade muffins or cupcakes anymore. You have to go off the smart snack list.
Correct.
So
So right, if parents want to do something special, they shouldn't be bringing cupcakes, because you're going to have plain flour, you're going to have a high concentrate of sugar and a high concentrate of fat. Also, your calories are going to be higher too.
I did notice in the wellness policy though or the wellness plan, that we're not to reward kids with food.
Correct.
It sounds like we are
discourage-
rewarding kids with food.
They discourage rewarding with food. They prefer things, whether it be shirts or pencils or pens or, you know, cups, to discourage them. But there's, for some students, it does really help, especially, I know for some of the.
And the other thing I was going to say is just having looked at the breakfast menu in particular, it's like cinnamon rolls, Lucky Charms, you know, that type of thing, instead of eggs or sausage or like protein-based foods.
Now we can serve meat along with the whole grain, but we're required still to serve a whole grain. All of our stuff, again, even if it's a cinnamon roll, it's going to be 51% whole grain. It's going to be reduced sugar, right?
Right,
it's gonna
but
be
I
all
mean,
same.
the reality is that carbs convert to sugar.
Yeah.
So it's sugar, 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 sugar.
So yeah, and then so something that we're going to try to add to our menu for next year is like a scrambled egg bowl. We're going to do fresh
Okay.
potatoes, scrambled eggs, looking to put the sausage patty on
Yeah.
there and have something like that, right? So we do try to come up with other things. We have to have the staff. First, we have to have staff, which we finally have, and we also have to make sure they're trained enough to know how to do that. So that will be on the last part of our menu for the because we have 3 menus for next year.
Mm.
So the very end of the school year will be planned to work on those things so we can have the school year to train, and then it'll be able to implement those. So we can do those, but the USDA also limits that ability to. We can't.
Okay.
We're not allowed to serve meat every single day. We can't go over either, right? We can't go too high and we can't go too low.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you planning to do more scratch meals? Is that what you're talking about now that you've got staff that
Yeah,
you're going to
absolutely.
train?
So also at that last one is making sure we have the product to do something as simple as the grilled cheese or the quesadillas. That way, those are the starts are made in-house. We already do quick scratch for the spaghetti. We used to make pozole, or I used to make pozole a lot because they asked for it. My staff don't know how to do that yet.
Mm.
And so is that something we can bring back if it was popular enough? Absolutely. So those are things that we're going to work on step by step, depending on how busy we are, what staffing we have. Unfortunately, we've just had a very high turnover rate. So
Mhm.
it's been a little bit harder. On the other end too, we also have vendors. Sometimes we can't get it from our vendors. We can order it for three months, and then all of a sudden the 4th month, they're like, we're out. I'm all like, that doesn't help and they want to substitute with a bun instead of a sliced bread, right? So we also have to look at what's readily available, and sometimes even though they say it's available, it's not. So sometimes we do have those changes and they'll substitute for us.
I just have one comment. So I understand, meeting the minimum requirements, but I too would like to see to go above and beyond that, not only sugars, which is a concern for me, but some of the seed oils and stuff too, that are a huge concern for me as well. I mean, I would like to see us moving in that direction. I know it's not going to happen overnight, but, and get, the kids used to, something more healthier, more nutritious, than something that just meets the minimum, federal guidelines.
And I understand, and usually we try to meet the maximum. We do try to offer those extra meats or offer those extra whole grains. So I have a program called Healthy Pro that I plug everything into, whether it's lunch, breakfast, or snacks. And what it does is it calculates every calorie, every sugar, all of my sodium. It calculates all of my grains, all of my dairy, everything is calculated in that. And it lets me know if my menu is not meeting the minimum, it's going to tell me that I have to fix my menu. Or if it's too high, I've had calories be too high and not realize it and be like, I messed up that recipe. I made it for a batch of it instead of for a single serving. So all those things get accounted for throughout our whole thing. I know you guys are talking about healthier and you guys want to do that. Our USDA guidelines are really meant for almost somebody like a cardiac patient. It's meant to meet really, really restrictive guidelines. So it may be a corn dog, but that corn dog's not going to be the same one as in the stores generally, because it's going to be a lot less, whether it be preservatives or a lot less sodium. They have to use special ingredients. So it makes it a lot harder. We had vendors, honestly, who fall out because they can't keep up at the USDA.
Yeah.
So those are things that we do. So we do look at, like, we're looking at it's a plant-based chicken nugget, right? I tried it, it's delicious. No harm, no foul, that's what they call it. So I thought it was really cool. Yeah, so we've been trying to get those. We couldn't get them from our purveyor, but they have them. So there are things we can look at. Whenever we have a conference, we look at the new foods being made. What are the students into? What can we do? And what can we do from more scratch? Things like Frito Bowls have been bought. So we do want to do that. It's just, again, getting the staff.
Yeah.
And I know it's a long goal and it's going to take longer time than we would hope. And it's unfortunate because we do want it to do it like right now. And unfortunately, we just have so much going on that it's not going to happen right now.
Yep.
Hopefully not next year, but the following year, it'll be a little bit more solidified with a little bit more that we would like.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for you, and I know you expressed your passion before on scratch cooking and things like that. And it sounds like you're moving into that area, and it's going to excel. So,
And we look at some schools. I know schools who don't even have like, right? None of elementary schools have kitchens at all. And then you have ones who have like Fresno, where they have a complete farm that takes care of all of their students. Right? They slice their own meat. They raise their own animals. They have everything.
Wow.
Everything is made in house, right? We don't have those capabilities, so I try to work within our capabilities and push beyond it. Our gardens, if they do present us with fruit and vegetables, we do offer those things, right? All of our stuff right now, we're working with what's like the hub. We offer fresh fruit and vegetables from Loomis, from Newcastle, from Auburn. And right now we're getting peaches and they're like the most juicy and amazing things, right? Because we still have summer school. So we are working locally and with local people. We do have grants to help supply that too. That way we can spend the extra money and have something that is a little bit more delicious, like those strawberries that are from the local farmers. So yes, we have some items that maybe aren't the most wonderful things, that aren't everybody's favorite to have on there, but do know that all of our items do meet that really restrictive standard, right? And we do try to find things that taste good, because we've had things that meet that USD standard, but you eat them and you're alive. No, that doesn't look right. That doesn't taste right. So we do work really hard through conferences and other things to provide things that are nutritionally safe, served safely, and that are delicious too.
And we were all commiserating earlier that feeding children is just the worst in general. So
It's not just like us, right? We're just as picky as they are about our food. So it can be harder. I think the only difference is that as adults, we can go ahead and pick whatever we want to eat. Whereas when we're serving the students, they're required to take a certain amount of components. And I know it goes to waste, but in order to get reimbursed for that meal, they have to take it. Lunch, they have to take a fruit or a vegetable. For breakfast, they have to either take 2 fruits or a milk, or a fruit and a milk, right? So it's not my standard. I know I have to enforce it. That's my job and I love my job. Do I always agree with it? No. The best thing I can do is talk to my legislator,
Yeah.
right? The most
Mhm.
impactful thing we do is
Mhm.
talk to our legislator, our congressman. And child nutrition is very involved in general, right?
Right.
They do go. They do have people that go and specifically talk with the legislator about how to interpret new rules, new laws that affect child nutrition, and they even go to DC to, talk to the congressman. So we do try to make an impact out of it.
Well, I thank you for all that you're doing, and you're doing a great job. And with that, I would like to move to approve item 10A, the wellness plan.
And I'll second, but before we go to that, I just wanted to add, Jason, Emily, if this is something that you're interested in, we could potentially write a letter to send to Congressman Kiley from our board,
Yeah,
expressing interest one way or the other about USDA and the school lunch program.
yes.
They actually have a representative that comes out with it.
Okay.
So we do encourage our staff to be like that.
I would be interested in that.
Okay, so on the motion to approve the 25-26 wellness plan, all in favor
I,
Aye.
and those opposed? All right, unanimous. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Okay, moving to item 10B, the after-school education and safety program.
This is the after-school education safety plan. We brought it to the board two meetings ago, I believe, and requested some changes. CDE requested that we clarify some items in the plan and resubmit for approval to accept the grant award for next year. Staff recommends approval of the ACES plan. And I know there have been some comments, and if the board wants to give direction to staff, that's all.
Are there questions or comments?
I had a comment that I sent in and I believe was sent out to everybody. Am I right?
Right,
It
about
was sent-
language?
Yeah.
Yep, and that, we said, we can bring it up here and for discussion regarding amended language if that's of interest to the board for sure.
So it was in section 5 of the titled Healthy Choices and Behavior. It has a paragraph that discusses the definition of triple play, the way that it's used, and the verbiage in there says that it focuses on the mind, body, and soul, which I don't particularly think is appropriate language for our contract. And when I went and looked at triple play, which is Boys and Girls Club's program, and on their website, there is an actual definition that they've written out. And that was what I was suggesting. We use their definition. It's their program. I mean, I can read it if you want, or otherwise.
I do think the second part that you stated is way more clear.
Mhm.
I agree. And I guess for folks listening, would you read that, please?
Yeah, what their website says is triple play is a suite of 3 targeted programs intentionally written to build the skills, attitudes, knowledge, and behaviors essential to an overall healthy lifestyle. And that's from their website.
Yeah, I think wherever we can be specific,
Mhm.
we should be. So,
Yeah.
I like that
It's their
language.
contract.
I do too. Are there additional questions or concerns?
No.
Then I would move that we approve the after-school education and safety program with the language change suggested by Trustee Travis.
Second.
All right, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? None. The motion carries. Moving to item 10C, approval of resolution 24-25-111, requesting collection of charges on Placer County tax roll.
The fiscal impact revenue of this is $477,000. And attached is the resolution. Annually, the board must approve a resolution requesting taxes on the community facility CFD 1999-1 be levied by the County of Placer pursuant to Section 53311 of the Government Code. This resolution represents $477,092.09 to be collected from the parcels listed in the attached within the 25-26 fiscal year. And attached is the resolution.
All right. Are there any questions or concerns on that? I move that we approve resolution 24-25-111.
I'll second.
All right, and clerk, if you please conduct a roll call vote.
Absolutely. President Holt,
Aye.
Clerk Grigsby, aye. Trustee Poole,
Aye.
Trustee Travis,
Aye.
and Trustee Wedge.
Aye.
Five
Right.
ayes.
The ayes have it. The resolution is approved. Moving to 10D, approval of reading difficulties risk screener.
Young, our director of student support, is very sick, so I'm going to present reading difficulties risk screener for you. Next slide, please, Dave. Few objectives for this. You may not have heard of it before. It is a relatively new in that you'll be adopting for the first time, but there is a requirement that we adopt a reading difficulties risk screener by the end of this month. So we're bringing it to you tonight. The idea of tonight's presentation is that we'll talk about the necessity for early identification of students with reading difficulties. We'll outline the selection process, that we use to make a recommendation this evening, highlight positive impacts, and then seek your approval on the tool that we're recommending. Next one, Dave. So why are we recommending a reading difficulties risk screener? So this, the state legislature outlined the importance of an RDRS screener for students in kindergarten through second grade to be conducted annually, with the idea that this will help us identify potential difficulties early for children that may inhibit or prevent them from learning and securing foundational reading skills. So if we have data early on, we can intervene early, bless you, and then hopefully help them acquire those foundational reading skills early on in their education. Next one, please. So what is the risk screener? Go ahead, Dave. So there's a few things that the RDRS is meant to do. It's as I said, in kindergarten through second, this will begin next year, and we're going to assess their risk for reading difficulties. What's really important, it's the third one up there, is this is not diagnostic. We're not saying that a student has certain reading difficulty. For example, we're not going to diagnose children as dyslexic, but what we're looking for are some flags that would indicate it's a potential concern and something that we might want to intervene around. So the idea here is that we can proactively support students, identifying those issues early. We can have a foundational focus. We've been talking about this a lot, but we're really looking at phonological awareness and phonics-based reading instruction. That's letter and sound connection. And we're also looking at rapid naming. Those are some of the things that are assessed through this RDRS screener. Like I said, it's not diagnostic, and we'll use it as an instructional tool for teachers that they can then take that information and help guide some of their small group or individualized reading support, which they already do. This will just be another data point to help them do that work a little bit more efficiently and targeted. And then ultimately, we're hoping to ensure that we're meeting the needs of all learners. We have English learners, we have kids from diverse backgrounds, and we want to make sure that we're helping them all develop strong. Go ahead, Dave. All right, so what did we do here in AUSD to determine what we'd be recommending this evening? One more slide. So in April, we had an informational meeting. Any K-12 teacher who is, K-2 teacher who was interested, including our school psychologist and our special ed teachers, were invited. And they looked at 4 approved screeners. So the state has done a rigorous search, and they actually created a screener themselves called Multitudes that we'll talk about this evening. And we presented some options to staff. From those 4 approved, down to 2 that we felt would be a good fit here in Auburn. We're going to talk about all of these. Then on the 28th, our ed services team met here with staff, with the staff committee, and we followed this structured process. That we reviewed our student demographics and data to determine what our needs are as a district. We used a rubric for criteria, so we look at the data behind these screeners. What kind of training do they offer? What kind of technology do they require? What languages are they in? They're not all in all languages, and we have to be able to provide them. And what alignment do we see with what we're already doing? We then received screening training from the publishers, discussed pros and cons, and had sort of a T-chart on each of these two screeners, and then recommended a screener for the superintendent and myself. I then discussed with Ed Services, and what we ended up doing is having one follow-up Google Meet to kind of talk about that final recommendation and preparation for the evening. What it is? Neuro Learning, which is through HMH, one of our publishers, and their distribution partners offered in English and Spanish. Also Amplify Education, offering K2. Dibbles is the name of that particular program, offered in English and Spanish. Multitudes, which was developed at UCSF and is the one that the state is working around to support, also offered in English and Spanish. And then Stanford University Rapid Online Assessment for Reading called ROAR, which is English only. ROAR was thrown out to begin with because we're going to need a Spanish component for us. And so looking at the other two, ultimately the team decided to look forward at Amplify's Dibbles and the UCSF screener Multitudes. Bless you. All right, go ahead, Dave. Next slide. So here's what came out of that kind of deep dive into these two, pros and cons, and then they assigned scores, and we looked at that overall score. Multitudes is research-based. Like I said, it comes out of University of California, San Francisco. You give this one time a year. What we would likely do is give the first and second grade assessment in the fall. We wait until spring for kindergarten. Gives them a little more time for some foundational learning. It's a pretty simple diagnostic to use, and it is also free. Both the diagnostic itself and the training that comes with it that's required to administer the assessment is free of charge, and it checks all the boxes for the California state requirements. The cons here is that it's a screener only. There's no curriculum associated with it, or kind of intervention is a better word, intervention materials associated with it. And there is limited information in the data results because it's new. That will come with time, but they don't have it quite yet. Dibbles has been around for quite some time. It's out of the University of Oregon. It has time-proven research. AUSD teachers are familiar from a free version of Dibbles. And the library of activities for support for intervention is already available. So once you determine that a student needs support, there's some tools there. The cons here are, and in short, it's a really big lift. One, Dibbles does have a cost associated with it. It's not insignificant. It is a big PD impact, a big professional development impact. So you have to learn how to both utilize the screener, read the screener, align it to intervention, and then properly administer intervention. And it has to be done multiple times a year. Well, in order to be part of this research-based program, you have to give it multiple times a year. It happens 3 times. So there are some lifts there. Go ahead and go to the next one. So actually, sorry, back up one. See, wasn't my presentation. I would have been more prepared if it was, sorry. Ultimately, what came out of that initial discussion in May was that the staff was thinking about recommending Dibbles. The ranking scores when we calculated points were very close, but Dibbles did win out. And so when I met with Ed Services, my question was why? What was really the driver behind all of this? And it was that piece to say, we want to make sure we know what kids we're identifying. Then we want to be able to do something about it. And then we want to progress monitor them. And the staff really saw all of those components within Dibbles and was not necessarily seeing those components in Multitudes. So my conversation was, what are we already doing that could potentially fill the hole of intervention and potentially fill the hole of progress monitoring? Do we have those things? Are they working? Are they aligned with what we see our students needing? Would those be good alternatives that would then allow us to potentially consider Multitudes? And part of my bigger, broader discussion was our plate's only so big, and Dibbles will take up a large chunk of that pie. And we know we have a lot of work to do. And moving forward, we've talked about some of those things for next year. And how is that going to split our focus? Is it going to split our focus? Maybe it's the right choice, but let's just talk about it and see if it's worth it. I was able to do that follow-up Google Meet and pull some more information from teachers and staff. And ultimately what we came to is Multitudes is definitely a screener that will help us identify what students have need. We have SIPs. We talked about that last board meeting. SIPS has additional components we're not currently using, like SIPS multisensory, that we could potentially layer on to what we're already doing so that we're not having staff learn a whole new thing, but maybe just another layer of something that complements what they're already doing. And using our iReady data, we could use that for progress monitoring. And in addition, iReady has intervention tools that we'll be launching next year. I think I talked about that during the LCAP presentation, that would also fill some of those intervention holes. And when we talked about that, staff said, oh, well, I understand. Now we can kind of fill all those buckets that we have questions about, right? Figure out who they are, you do something, and then progress monitor them with a lot of the tools we're already using, which then eliminates that professional development lift. Multitude also as a free intervention. And of course, if it's the right thing, we're going to pay for it. But if it's the right thing and it's free, and a right thing that costs money, we might lean towards the right thing that is free, and Multitudes checks that box. The other piece is that the state has had a huge influx of interest in Multitudes. When we surveyed districts around us, most districts are leaning towards using Multitudes in our area in Placer County. And because of that, the state sees a need for additional support. So out of Prop 98, and again, that's not approved yet, like Jeremy said, that'll come on the 15th. There's $10 million allocated to bolster Multitudes professional development, follow-up, and data collection and review. So we now see, since our meeting that even came about, so we now understand that the state is going to put more eggs in that basket, if you will. So given that, which, now we can go to the next slide, Dave, our recommendation is actually to move forward with Multitudes. We'll answer any questions you have. And then at the end, we would ask that you take action if you're willing to adopt Multitudes as our RDRS screener, and that's our recommendation.
Yeah, I actually do have a question.
Yeah.
So if Multitudes, you said it's still pretty new to the state, and
Mhm.
so then therefore they're kind of still creating it. So does that mean that they could also create a fee for it down the line somewhere?
I mean, never say never, right? But at this point, our understanding is that it is free of charge. There's been no discussion about it costing districts money. Knowing that legislation passed requiring an RDRS adoption and utilization in the coming year, the state really jumped on board to say, what can we do to help support those efforts? That's what Multitudes came out of. So it was born of this legislation. I don't anticipate it's going to start costing money. And the fact that the state's allocating $10 million out of Prop 98 funds is probably indicative that they want to make sure it keeps going free of charge.
Is there a contract involved to use Multitudes? Like, so if we used it and something happened, like she's saying, could we get out and get into something else?
Good question. I don't know the answer to that question, but I could certainly look at it. We would have to get the materials and utilize them and what have you. I believe if Kelly was here, she would know for sure. I believe it's just readily available to us, but if there's a contract of some kind or what have you, I could certainly send that out.
And is that a one-on-one, like teacher student? And how long does each, like,
Do you remember? Yeah, you'll know better than I do. Yeah.
And it's one-on-one, and it's 2 devices, and they're linked together. And so the student has a device, the teacher has a device, there's a script, and then depending on if the child scores correctly or incorrectly, it takes them through kind of a gauntlet. And then if they get a lot right, then the ceiling, rises. But if they get a lot wrong, it kind of just shuts it down, like, hey, you're done, great job. So that one was definitely more computer, and the Dibbles was more like engaging with the student, asking the questions, and then physically writing them.
okay.
And our rollout plan, which I skipped and Sarah's reminding me of. So we will be administering the assessment with our ed services team and our reading intervention teacher at each school site. So teachers will receive the data and then any information they need in professional development around the intervention component, but the actual screening that we'll do one-on-one will be with our team along with intervention teachers.
And you're not going to screen every student, I'm assuming.
We screen every student in
you
K
do.
through 2. That's the
okay.
requirement of the law. Yep,
Got
they all
it.
get screened.
Okay.
And they get screened in K, in 1, and 2. So they'll get screened every year for 3 years, all students.
Okay.
So what devices are we using? Is that something that's provided by Multitudes, or?
No, it's an
It's
online
just-
screener, so I assume we use Chromebooks. Is that the discussion?
That was part of the discussion, because in the video they had iPads,
Mm.
but I would assume that it would be compatible with Chromebooks.
So we could look into that. But it
And
would be
and does it, it is electronic? You
It's
can't do it like,
No, and
otherwise?
that's what Sarah's talking about. The Dibbles one would be on paper. But then you also have to collect all that, score it by hand and do all the
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
I prefer to reduce screen times.
It almost
Even in
sounds
testing.
like with the multitudes, it's kind of like case by case also. So if it kind of like a choose your own adventure book, if you choose door A, then you can keep on going to see how far you
Right.
can. Yeah.
Yeah, you
so-
may have a kid who tests just for a minute. You may have a kid who tests for 3, 4, or 5. If they, and I think that's Sarah's point. Like if they're getting the questions right, it's going to keep them going so that they can figure out where can they get to. But if they're not, then it says, well, this is where you're at, and then the assessment ends.
What kind of cost is the Dibbles?
It's something around $9,000, $10,000, something in that range for the year. I feel like that's correct. We could look it up
Okay.
for you if you want to know exactly. Yeah, I think that's about the range. Given it's based on enrollment because you have to buy per seat.
Mhm.
And I hear you on the screen time. I will say, risk reward. We will be giving that Dibbles assessment 3 times a year. We'll be also be doing it by hand.
Mhm.
And to be honest, the materials that come out of it in terms of the intervention, then we also have to do PD. It's a completely different ballgame if we go that way. Dibbles is research based. It's great stuff. I'm not knocking it at all. It just will be an entirely new thing for us, and it will certainly take people's attention and time. So, and that's kind of my risk reward analysis, right?
Mhm. Are you talking about just so it's it's not TK, it's just K1, 2.
Correct.
So that's 3 grades at 3 schools. How many teachers are we talking about?
2. So, well, depending on site,
Okay.
but typical would be 2K, 2-1, 2-2 classes. So 6 classes total being tested annually 1 time. With multitudes, with Dibbles, they'd be tested 3 times.
And after you guys had these discussions, the staff feels more on board with multitudes rather than
Correct.
doubles.
Even though the numbers stacked up differently?
Say that again.
Even though the numbers stacked up differently when you evaluated it?
Correct. At the May 28th, and they were close within, I think it was like 144 to 125, something like that. But the way the points stacked up, they were close. But the drivers behind that were, once we assess them, how do we know what to do? And once we do something, how do we know if they're improving? And so not understanding how those things could be filled through other avenues, Dibbles stacked up higher. And so that was my kind of question when I was talking to Ed Services. And when we talked it through, they were like, oh, actually, these are things we could do to address some of the concerns with multitudes. Should we move forward with multitudes? And my answer was, well, maybe, but I don't want to make that decision as one without going back to people who have more of that understanding and boots on the ground knowledge, and they're working with kids. I've never taught K1 or 2. So we went back to the team and had a conversation, and that was ultimately what we came to. And that was how I posed it, is here's my thought, right? Here's what I'm thinking, and here's why I'm kind of here's what I hear as your concerns. Here's what I see as potential fixes. Does that sound reasonable? Or do you still think no, Dibbles is the way to go? And you tell me. And what we got out of that conversation was, it seems reasonable to go forward with multitudes. And teachers said, honestly, we're a little leery about the lift with the PD and the 3 times testing. This eliminates some of that, while also, eliminates it by 66%, right? And while also answering our questions about what to do and how to monitor it.
So the follow-up testing, would that be for every student or just the ones that are found to have some sort of need?
Well, we would do this. So if we go with multitudes, it'd be once a year. They wouldn't do the multitude screener
Right.
again. The screener is just kind of to identify. Then we would do something, right? Whatever was needed based on what the data tells us. And then we would progress monitor. But what we would use to progress monitor would be assessment data that we're already implementing. But then we would know what sections of it we need to look at. And in between that intervention would look like something like SIPs instead of a new and different thing.
I'm saying if we did decibels, what is
Oh,
that? The second and third test, is that for every student or just the ones that have fallen behind in some way?
Well, it's the ones who would do intervention and then,
So it
right?
wouldn't be every student?
or is it everyone 3 times?
Your baseline that you're getting
And then those students that qualify under that
Right.
have the progress monitoring. So you have like your 6-week intervention period, and then you progress monitor, and then you have another 6 to 8 week window and you progress monitor, and you see that consistent data
Mhm.
versus doing the multitudes, having them screen, finding out where they're below, and then doing your own kind of progress monitoring and using intervention. And
Mhm.
so it's two different things. They're kind of on that parallel, but one is a very heavy lift, like Brittany was saying. I did dibbles for years in my classes. It's a lot of work as a classroom teacher. As a reading intervention teacher, totally different ballgame. So you've got different pieces, and we have a lot of new staff, so it's like trying to put that on them would be a really heavy ask. But then you also have resources. They have a lot of resources available with their program.
So would the reading intervention teacher be the one to do the second and third test then, or the follow-ups on those?
Potentially, our goal, and we mapped it out in terms of multitudes, but our goal is to take the assessment lift off of teachers. So we would be doing it with our ed services team and our reading intervention
Oh.
teachers. Now, if we're doing that 3 times a year, meaning actually 9 times a year across 3 sites, we'd have to look at that and the feasibility. Are we gonna have to onboard teachers and get their help with that, given, more assessment time? However, when we talk about intervention, we don't just want to do intervention at tier 2 necessarily if students need it. We also want to provide some intervention at tier 1, or, I kind of call it a 2- in the classroom. So there's a potential we'd also look at training teachers on some of the DIBEL stuff so that they could do it in class as well, which would be a new thing for them.
Have you seen any data on the dibbles as far as, what kind of success has come through, the ones that's gone through the dibbles versus the multitudes?
Well, we don't have data on multitudes yet because it's launching in 26, 27, but it's only a screener. So it's just going to identify what need is. That's the component that's missing, is the progress monitoring. So we would do that using, our thought was to use our iReady data that we're using linked to reading and phonics and all those areas. Dibbles has been around for a long, long time. So I don't have that data. I can certainly give it to you if you want it. But it is a research-based proven
Mhm.
a screener, intervention, and progress monitoring tool.
I've heard great things about dibbles, but the common thing I've heard is that it's so time consuming. So
Yeah.
I really see the point that you guys discussed, which is there's so many things being there's an ELA program being piloted. There's a lot happening.
Yeah.
So I can see why it would be beneficial to have a screener and then to use things you're already using.
And with any adoption, we're adopting something, we're going to use it in 26, 27. No one's used multitudes before. We've never used it clearly. There may be things that come out of it that we're coming back to you next spring talking about that again, right? You know better, you do better. But at this point, that's our recommendation for all the reasons I listed. But I agree with Amber. It's, and to Jason's point, Dibbles is a proven program. I don't think it's a bad thing. The question is it the right fit for where we are next year?
And Emily, I agree. I'd like to see less screens, but I can see the need for this. And as long as it works on our Chromebooks, I'm in support then of going through it, as long as we don't need to buy additional things or tablets. Because it's just a screener. It's just one test.
Yeah, and it's on a lot. They're not spending an hour on it.
No.
Even if they do well, max, right?
I think that was
Yeah.
the estimate, 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it something we can revisit? I think I may have said this earlier, like in a year after you've evaluated it, bring it back and tell us how it's going and tell us what you've learned.
We can certainly do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like
And
to
there'll
see
be a
that.
lot more data at that point because like I said, a large swath of the state of California and also just locally in Placer
Yeah.
County are using multitudes. So we'll have a lot of data
Yeah.
to share, I'm sure.
Because I guess what I'm not understanding is, as we talk through it, I'm understanding a lot more, versus a one-time screen versus, multiple screens, progress and everything. So I would like to see, I can go either way on both of them. But I would like to see, multitudes. That's the direction the board goes, is to kind of bring it back and
Yeah.
see where we're at with that.
Yeah, May or June next year, once we've completed all that and looked at the intervention cycles. That seems fair. Cool.
Are there any additional questions? I move that we approve the RDRS screener using multitudes.
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None. Motion carries. And moving to the 10E, the Gifted and Talented Student Program second read.
Yeah, we,
We'd like the air turned on.
oh, sorry,
We
did
have-
you turn the, it's on, right? Yeah, it's on now. Okay, so Gifted and Talented AR 6172. I brought this forward last time, had the amended language. So last time you had the red line language with track changes. This time it's a clean copy. But nothing's been changed since last time, and there was no request for changes by the board. But the overarching change here is that it's an opt-out for gate testing instead of an opt-in. So that's called passive consent. We would provide testing to all students annually in by grade 4, so essentially in grade 3. And if parents didn't want their child assessed for GATE, Gifted and Talented Education Program, then they would let us know and we would not test them. But otherwise, we would test all of our students in that grade level annually. And staff recommends approval unless there's question or comment.
Does that go out with the beginning of the year, all the forms to fill out, or does that come out at testing time?
It may be an annual data confirmation, but we certainly tell parents that it's coming. So we did it this year in the spring. I want to say it was a couple of months ago, and we sent out a letter coming from our office, just catapulted to all students in the grade level. This year we did it for 3rd and 4th to backfill because last year we didn't assess in 3rd grade. So we did 2 grade levels, sent that out to families, and let them know that it was happening. So even if it is an annual data confirmation, they would get
Do it again.
it's coming in a month. Let us know if you don't want your kid to be assessed.
Are there additional questions? All right, then I move that we approve AR 6172, the GATE program as written.
Second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? None. Okay, moving to 10F, the March board policy update, second read and approval.
Okay, so this is the second read on that large packet of March policy. And Amber and Emily, you can help me because I think last time we did December's, I did forget something. So let's make sure I don't forget anything this time. We had 2 policies for removal. They're marked, and you have a clean copy, so they're marked in there. But we had 2 policies for removal. They're at the very end, and that would be, hold on. Well, maybe they're not at very end. Hold on.
Is it the science?
It's, yeah, it's
social
science and
studies?
social studies optional policy. Do you have them?
Yeah, so it is. By, or 6142. And 61, so 6142.93 and 6142.94.
And there's no changes in language. It's just noted within the clean copy that those are optional policies that'll be removed.
Mhm.
And then the other change that we looked at is we struck language within the mobile phone policy. And that is, let's add that one.
Oh,
5131.8.
Mhm.
We struck language on page 1, and then we chose option 2. And so you have a clean copy there as well for 5131.8. Any questions about any of those?
I guess my question, so the clean copy that's attached here, that has the updated language.
Should.
I'm waiting.
Let me find it here.
153. I guess I'd have to just look at last month's.
Yeah.
Do you need the charger?
Okay, so if you look at 5131.8, and it is on page, what page is this? Is it
53.
Yeah,
one-
153.
153?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, so at that top paragraph, it had, I can read you the old one. Let me find it. So originally it said, the governing board recognizes that student use of smartphones and other mobile communication devices on campus may be beneficial to student
Okay.
learning and
took out- we
well-being
took
Okay,
out-
got it.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
and could
thank
be
you.
harmful.
yeah, yeah.
So now we
We're
took
gonna
that out and it
Mhm.
just stops, it cut out benefit and goes could be harmful. Does that make
Perfect.
sense?
Yep.
And then there were two options provided. If you scroll down there, one of the option was limited smartphone or mobile communication device. That was where kids can use it during non-instructional time. We went with option 2, which is prohibited use of smartphone and other mobile communication device. And it reads, students shall not use smartphones or other mobile communication devices while at a school site or under the supervision and control of a district employee. And that's about just after number 4. Or sorry, no.
It's the second paragraph, I think.
Yes, sorry, directly following the
Mhm.
paragraph we just talked about, second paragraph.
Perfect.
And I believe those were the only changes in the March policy.
Yeah.
That we needed to discuss. Some of the other ones we made choices, but they're just our choices. So for our policy, so there was like something about classified staff and monthly payment and how often they were paid, and we do an 11-month cycle. So we made some of those choices just because they align with how we
Just
do
put the
things.
number of months
Correct.
or whatever. Yeah.
But in terms of choices for the board, those were the 3 things we talked about in terms of your decision and discussion.
I had one question, actually. So this is about board policy 5125. So one second, I can tell you what page it is.
It's page 121.
Thank
Student
you.
records.
Yes. So on there, and I just need to find where it talks about the program. So the line I'm looking at is about student records from social media. The superintendent or designee may gather and maintain information from the social media of any district student, provided that the district first notifies students and parents, guardians about the proposed program, offers an opportunity for public comment at regularly scheduled board meeting. I didn't see where it talked about that as a program, so I wasn't sure if it was talking about if we wanted to have like a set program where we regularly do that, or if it was a one-time thing, like we're looking at an individual student who may or may not have communicated a threat or something concerning on social media. I think I just want a little clarification on that.
Yeah, okay, so I'm there now. Let me find that line. Which line are you
All
at?
right, I'm,
Which section is this?
I'm working on it. I copied and pasted it. So page 113, actually. So 113 at the bottom, under student records from social media.
Okay.
Just above where it says retention, disclosure, and security of student records.
Okay.
Student records from social media. They're an AR and a BP. Are you in the BP or are you in the AR?
I'm in policy.
Okay. Oh, so you're asking what does proposed program refer to?
Yes.
I think it's just broadly referring to that we notify parents that it is something that we may do like
Okay.
within our instructional program. So those are things that's the kind of stuff that would all be within annual notification, right? And yes, it would be if a child is utilizing social media for something that would be disciplinary in action related to safety concerns that we may say, okay, we're going to maintain this record. Typically, if we're at a point like that, we're contacting law enforcement and they're doing what they need to do to confiscate things like a phone. Maybe they take a video out of it and that becomes something that is then used as part of the record.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
No.
Is there a motion?
I would like to put forth a motion to approve these updates to our board policies.
Second.
Right, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? And unanimous on that one. And moving to item 10G, Director of Maintenance Operations Technology job description.
So this is a new job description. You'll notice there's a T in it. That stands for technology, and the M&O stands for maintenance and operations. So we previously had a maintenance operations and facility manager position. And then we have Dave, who's our director of technology. And when we started to restructure the M&O department and had an opening in the MO and facilities manager position, we started to have a conversation about what do we do to best structure that position so that the department has the support that it needs with the right person in place, and thinking about the fact that, you know, we are in a declining enrollment place. And so how can we start to consolidate? So Jeremy and I, maybe to his chagrin, talked to Dave about taking on an MOT position. And MOT it's not uncommon in terms of a maintenance operation and technology director role, but it would be new to us. So essentially what this looks like is that Dave maintains his technology duties and he takes on some of the maintenance and operations, and that includes a little bit of custodial position as well in terms of the management job that we're collapsing. Part of this that will come in August is that we also are going to look at adding an M&O lead position. We'll negotiate with our labor partners and CSEA on that and bring it forward, but that would be a support person to Dave in the department as well. And then he currently has an assistant in technology. We're gonna pilot the start of the year and then kind of talk about what does that look like? Do we need to look at any tweaks to the technology department as well? But we've been piloting this since, when did we start? Maybe February, yeah, to just do several months of kind of looking and seeing, and that's how we came up with the need for a lead position in M&O, and seeing that we could kind of hit pause on technology for the moment, but we should revisit that in the fall. But Dave has already done great things in the department in terms of collecting data, helping us make informed decisions, and I think better serve our school sites. So we're excited to bring this forward to you. We definitely recommend you approve the job description as written, because Dave's ready, willing, and able to go on July 1st is when he'll roll over to the new position. I'll take any questions, comments.
All right, I'm not seeing any. So I move that we approve the Director of Maintenance Operations Technology job description.
I'll second that.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And thank you so much for stepping up.
Absolutely. Congratulations.
I'm not seeing any nays, so.
No.
All right, moving then to item 10H, confidential management salary schedule.
So this adds the Director of Maintenance Operations and Technology position that you just approved to the salary schedule, adjusts it to a new line, and also makes it a 225-day calendar, which is slightly different than the calendar day was on previously. It builds in duty days of 225, and then the rest are non-duty, and you do an annual calendar, very similar to what all administrators like Jeremy and myself do, versus his previous calendar, which was, I think, 260. Then that's holidays and vacation time included. So it's a bit of a restructuring of the calendar as well. But that's what's on the salary schedule for approval, and we recommend approving. We'll take any questions and comments.
Are there any questions? Okay, I move that we approve the confidential management salary schedule.
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous approval. And moving to 10I, approval of employment contract extension for the CBO.
So Jeremy, our CBO, is under contract. It's a 3-year contract. Obviously, when we get to the end of the first year, there's 2 years left. And so annually, we'll bring forward an extension of the contract. It is an extension of 1 year. The terms of the contract outside of the date and shifting in salary based on additional years of service. Nothing changes. The contract extension simply states that we're extending by 1 year to maintain a 3-year period. I will also take this moment because we don't often get a lot of time to say thank you. And sometimes being a CBO is a rather thankless job, and it's a very, very hard one. Jeremy has done a phenomenal job this year. I think he's increased our transparency with the budget. He certainly helped me understand even better what's happening with our budget and allows us to proactively plan and be very strategic with what we're doing with the money that we do have and best serve students and teachers in that regard. So I genuinely appreciate Jeremy. He's made a very positive shift in our climate and culture in AUSD. We're very fortunate to have him. And one of the stipulations of a contract extension is that he has to have a satisfactory evaluation. So now you all know that that's true. But we very much look forward to having him continue with us in AUSD and want to say thank you. So I again wholeheartedly recommend approving his extension as written.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. I think your work here has definitely increased trust in the district and the financial processes. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Again,
Other-
thank you, Jeremy.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
I will move for approval then for, what was that? For the, CBO employment contract.
Second.
Okay, and all those in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? Don't see any, so unanimous approval. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, we are just at 2 hours, so we'll take a 10-minute recess. Let's round up to 8:57. We'll resume here at 9:07. So it is 9:07 and we will resume here in open session. So moving right on to the interdistrict transfer reports.
All right, so the document is included there. I'll walk you through the high points. This is an annual report, so this is all of 24-25. The first page is outgoing students, and that's by a couple things. One, you have it by district on the left side, so where they're going to. And inter-districts, by the way, these are students that would be leaving us. You have the rationale for why they're choosing to go at the top. What most often you see is continuing. 125 out of 159 students have been there previously and are continuing. And then next it would be employment, followed by kind of other sibling and so on and so forth from there. It talks about just below that table, what schools we're losing students from, and that's listed out in totals. They're all pretty equal in the 50s. And then it's also broken out for you by grade level and then grade level by site. The next page are kids that are incoming. So same tables, but where are they coming to us from and for what reason? Again, the majority of students continuing with us on inters are because they've gone here in the past and they're asking to continue on an inter. We break it down by grade level and break it down by school. In terms of students coming in, we have about 60 students who come into our district annually. The third page there breaks down year by year. So you can look at outgoing from our district. The good news is we're declining and students were losing on inter-district. So we lost 197 in 22-23, 177 students total in 23-24. And this year we're down to 159. And on the last page, you'll see the same 3-year trend for students coming into our district. And that's stayed relatively steady, 53 coming in, 62 coming in, and 60 coming in. Is there any questions that you have?
My only question is, I know these reports don't include people going to charters or private schools.
Correct, correct.
Do those reports exist somewhere?
Yeah, we've talked about that before. The only way to do that really would be like a self-reporting. So when students attend public schools, they're in our CalPAD system and they're tracked. So we can see where students end up. And, for example, if a student disenrolls from us, CalPADs will give us a notification when they enroll somewhere else. Well, and that's only true if it's in California, obviously. If they go to Wisconsin, we wouldn't necessarily know. So the only way to really track this would be students in a public school within the state of California. We could track in CalPADs, and then also with inters, we're going to have a hard copy piece of paper that's coming to us, either asking to come in or requesting to go out. So it would be near impossible to track the others, but yeah.
Will you say again what continuing means?
Continuing means I've been here, I'm asking to continue.
So
So
at some point, we don't know the origin reason of leaving.
yeah, we'd have to go backwards.
Got it. So you
Yeah.
have to go back however many years since they went.
Yeah. So all the
Yeah.
choices you have there,
A lot of people.
correct.
That's why we brought her from Loomis.
Yeah.
We expected you to bring all of those.
Well, the funny thing is that and I signed them all, and a lot of them, like you see employment. So there was quite a few teachers who teach in Loomis, and that's why they bring their kids to Loomis, because they're going to school with them every day. And I wanted to write, "Hey, Karen, it's nice over here. Bring them back," because I know them all. But no, it's yeah. And so yeah, with the continued, you have to go backwards. So those are all choices on the inter-district transfer form, and parents select which reason they're choosing. So after their inaugural year, they would select continue at the school my child is currently attending.
Sure.
Are there any other questions on that? Comments? Okay, moving to 11B, Learning Communities for School Success Program Grant Opportunity.
Sorry, that was me. I turned myself off. Okay, so this one's actually going to be pretty short. So I had sent information to the board on the request for application for Learning Communities for School Success Program grant opportunity. And I sent that to you, and we added it to the board meeting for discussion this evening to talk about whether or not we had appetite to apply for that grant. And it was a quick turnaround. So we found out about this grant about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks if we're being generous, and it's due next Friday. So I wanted to make sure it was on this agenda to have a discussion. And what I had said to the board via email communication was, we're putting this on the agenda. I'm sending you the RFA to take a look at. We're going to dig in a little deeper as a district, and then we can discuss it further at the board meeting. So we have discussed it and dug in a little bit deeper. And in short, our recommendation is not to move forward with the grant application. It would account for about potentially $65,000 over a 3-year period. When Jeremy and I looked at that and what we would be using that for, and Jeremy talked about this in budget and LCAP, we have an increase in concentration supplemental dollars that are coming to us given our unduplicated count. And we also have an increase in ELOP dollars that we'll talk about tomorrow with our ELOP plan. Given that, what we would fund, we could potentially link to those additional dollars. So the limited amount of funds that would come, the ask and the lift of the reporting, although not huge, is just doesn't seem, speaking of risk reward, doesn't necessarily equate to being worthwhile. Did I miss anything in regarding funding? Yeah. So when we dug in a little bit deeper, our thought is that we wouldn't move forward. And in the meantime, other districts in our county that were considering this have kind of come to the same conclusion. So sometimes grants are worth it, sometimes they're not, and we didn't see a need for it, but happy to answer any questions or comments that you may have. Okay,
Yep.
that's all.
Thanks for looking into it,
Yeah.
getting ready to pursue it, and then moving on when it didn't work. Okay, moving to 11C, we have some public comment.
Sorry. All right, you ready? Okay. All right, first one I have is Bristol Scanlon from Auburn.
Yes, the
Yeah,
GIE statement.
Oh, yes, that's what I had. 11C, we're on 11C, is that correct? Correct, that's what we're on. Yeah, 3 minutes. Oh, are you asking?
This is your public comment, ma'am.
There's disinterest in having it removed from the statement. I feel like it's a waste of our time to come here and discuss whoever's hatred towards the minority children of Auburn, California. The statement, if removed, I'm assuming will then start removing programs which help benefit disabled children, children of low income. I just don't understand why Auburn Union School District doesn't want to be all inclusive of our demographics. If you look at Auburn Elementary School specifically, the vast majority of the students that are enrolled there are of Latin descent. So I would think that it would be the school district's priority to make the majority of those children feel welcomed and included in their education. So it's just very concerning to see that once again we're attacking low-income disabled brown students. This isn't the first time that the Auburn Union School District has attacked brown students. Also in the past, I just assumed that there was possibility of federal administration pressure for us to remove this. In the past, there's been federal orders, and the Auburn Union School District during COVID rose above and pushed back on some of those orders that weren't best for our children. I'm really hoping that the school district again pushes back against the federal administration for what is best for all students of the school district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amber Robinson.
My name is Amber Robinson. I'm the mother of Trexolo Robinson, who attends Skyridge Elementary, and he's in the special education program and works hard to push into the general education classes every day and goes to Discovery Club. I have one of the rare gems of an autistic child who is social and craves connection and helps him thrive, where he has formed real lasting friendships and has made meaningful academic progress and independence from being included as much as I can advocate for since he's been a toddler. I'm here tonight to ask you to not eliminate the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy from this statement. It's the foundation of my son's IEPs and has been from his kindergarten year. His goals, supports, and classroom access were built on the belief that he belongs and shows great. Oh, I'm sorry. We work together to show that he belongs and thrives in a social environment that also shows his educational growth as well as being included with general education students. It helps solidify that we are a diverse district that allows neurodivergent and other low-income families to be a part of all of schools' activities and curriculums. Thank you.
Annette LaForge.
Hi. I'm Annette LaForge. I've had the opportunity to meet many of you, not all of you, so hope to speak with you more in the future. I am also here today to just learn more about the diversity, equity, inclusion statement. I've just been hearing some rumblings about some potential changes that will happen. I received more text messages and emails than I can count today from friends in the community and members of my school that are concerned about changes. And I was hoping to hear a statement from you all about kind of what your proposed changes are and what your ideas are for this policy with our school. But something about myself, I would consider myself to be one of our recruitment committees for our school district. I'm on the site council at my school. I am an incoming board member for our PTC. I host more events than I can count and volunteer more days than I really should, having a full-time job already. And I'll say that I think the three main topics I hear from parents as concerns for why they are interested in going to another school is the issues of safety and opportunities in our school district. And I think that this statement is a really good marketing tool for our district to speak to some of those concerns amongst parents that are worried that their kids won't have the opportunities that other school districts might because they make these values more front and center. So I guess I'm just here to appeal to maybe the conversation leading more towards an expansion of these values and the elements that really do speak to our larger population in the sentiment that if, you know, the laws and the rules that are already in place that would be in place, whether or not we had this policy, are being supplemented by the additional commitment from our district that if a child is not being met by the laws and rules that are in place, that this policy will step in and we will put in the effort to make sure that child's needs are being met. So just some considerations. Thanks, guys.
Veronica Magana.
So I currently have two students that go to that are in the district. I came today just to talk about to express the importance of maintaining and not weakening our DEI policy. It is not an extra optional initiative. It's a foundational tool that directly supports our district's LCAP goals, especially those focused on student achievement, school climate, and engagement. DEI efforts help ensure all students, regardless of race, gender, ability, or background, have equitable access to resources, support, and opportunities. And that is one of the big reasons why I hear as well most parents remove their children from our district. Our enrollment numbers have continuously been low for years. There's less opportunity, there's less, I feel, inclusivity with the, consolidation of schools. It's just not aligning with our DEI statement. Sorry, I'm find where I was at. Not weakening our DEI statement aligns with LCAP's core goals of increasing academic performance and closing achievement gaps. When students feel seen and respected and safe, they're more engaged, which leads to better learning outcomes, stronger attendance, and both are key metrics in our LCAP. That was one of the big discussions in the LCAP meetings was how do we get more kids in their seats every single day? Children who are happy and feel safe, feel seen, have teachers who are invested in them, teachers who put high expectations on them because they know they can meet those expectations, are more likely to come to school. They don't have to argue with their parents every morning, every single morning, to come to school, to a place where they don't feel welcomed, where they don't feel included, where they don't feel seen. No kid's going to want to come to school like that. DEI also improves school climate by fostering a culture of belonging and inclusion, which contributes to lower suspension rates and better overall student well-being. I know that one of our other LCAP issues was school suspensions and behaviors. So including this statement and not weakening it will only encourage our students to rise to the expectation of our DEI statement. Without it, we're not putting our best foot forward. We're not putting our best face forward to parents who are looking to move into our area, come to our website and see what our district is about. It's about the kids. It's about making it a welcoming place. And without our DEI, that's not what we're going to have.
Thank you.
Pat Pistoni.
Trustees. So I'd just like to talk a few minutes about DEI, and that even though there may be many benefits to the program, there are also drawbacks to this program that I see as a retired teacher and concern for all students, that they all should feel welcomed and cared for. And that's part of our mission statement here in the district, is that we consider all students and we treat them respectfully, no matter where they're coming from. However, there are some elements to the DEI that can be detrimental. Okay, for instance, it can affect communication, okay, and collaboration in a classroom due to differences that come up because there are different beliefs. Everyone has, a different belief sometimes. We don't always agree with the same thing. So it creates some division at times, which makes it more difficult, I believe, in a classroom. Another is just, that's one, and that can create anxiety when you start to have differences and they're not building a respect level for everyone. Even though it sounds like that's what you're doing, it cannot go that way sometimes, just because of the way that some of the things are initiated through the program. And I think some parents don't like that. And I think some parents leave because they don't like that. And like I said, it's coming from a difference of belief and opinion. The equity part, okay, it focuses on, equalizing outcomes in the equity part of this DEI, okay? It can undermine principle of individual merit for students, all students. Teach them hard work and how hard work is very important. And it can ultimately lead to lowering academic standards. And we're all dealing with that. We know we're in our students not being able to read, and we're struggling with that. So that's just one of the things that I think is important to think about, okay? It can discourage students from striving to be excellent, thereby devaluing the importance of hard work and dedication. And we want to instill those things in all of our students and give them that opportunity to be good citizens and help them along. And I know that's what this program probably tries to do in some of the benefit areas. However, you have to look at benefits, and you also have to look at things that are not so beneficial when they're considering something. And anyway, it can also create, like I said, division among student groups. We don't want division. I mean, yeah, it's sounding like we want to include, but it creates division.
Thank you.
Sometimes. So thank you.
That's all the public comment that I have.
Thank you. So the district's diversity, inclusion, and equity statement, or DIE statement, was a product of board members who are no longer on this board and a superintendent who's no longer here either. Addressing some of what actually was brought up earlier, concerns that removing this statement that is not a policy. It carries no weight. It has no teeth. It requires no actions of the district. It doesn't lead to increased discrimination. Discrimination is still illegal. Harassment is still illegal. What this statement does is it introduces grievance politics at the district level. In order to develop 21st century lifelong learners, we must remove obstacles to accessing educational opportunities, which includes the awareness of the historical impact of bias, prejudice, and discrimination, which for generations has produced predictability of learning outcomes based on race, class, socioeconomic, I didn't misspeak, that's how it's written, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, cognitive, physical ability, diverse language fluency, and religion. So I think there's plenty of room in there to discuss, but quite frankly, I don't think this statement reflects the position of this board or the Auburn community at large, which is why those trustees are no longer on this board. So I want to open up the discussion, and I would like to I'd like to bring this back for action to remove this statement.
I have questions since you are the one that brought it. So, I'll start by saying, like, I mean, for me personally, I generally find statements like this to be beautiful, and I would love to see them all over. But I decided I'm going to remove the lens of how I feel about these statements in general and look at just our statement and what does our statement say, and is there anything about our statement that I think the values that it highlights, is it in conflict? Because we as a board have talked a lot about our values. We spent a lot of time workshopping what we value, developed a whole handbook around our values. So when I read through this, I couldn't see it. I didn't see anything that conflicted with it. So I was curious, what about this statement? So my questions are, one, what about this statement specifically do you think doesn't reflect our values? And then two, is there any connection you see to having this statement causing any kind of harm? Because as some of the commenters have said, this statement, yes, it did come, I mean, statements like this are going to come and go if we decide that every time we have a new board, we're going to add or remove them, right? So this was on the agenda, I think 2 years ago. It was voted to remain. And so I guess my concern is, as a board, if every time you have a new cycle of people, you're adding and removing things, that seems very binary to me. And so I also think if it's between changing it to make sure it reflects our values and removing it, I feel like those are two options and we don't only have two options. Also, as a board, we've done a really good job looking at policies, looking at what we value collectively and collaborating on it. And so I want to let you answer your questions, but I also just want to say at the outset, if it's between keeping it or removing it, I think another option is, why don't we collaborate on something that does reflect our values instead of just removing it when so much of the community, it matters to them to have their values reflected in this way.
Yeah, sure. First, what specifically doesn't reflect our values? Really the introduction of grievance politics and the focus on race and all these other immutable characteristics that DEI programs and policies generally bring.
Can you explain that a little? Just break down for me the grievance politics part and why the statement means that.
But first here, so when we talk about the connection from statement to harm, it would be if we were to build on this and expand on this. If DEI is going to be a core tenet of our district policies, what we see those lead to are discriminatory policies. Harvard, a couple years ago, they ended up getting in trouble for their policies and discriminating against Asian students in their practices. We've seen other examples where it's been different sort of discrimination in hiring practices. I've got my prepared statement from previously that I don't have up.
Sure.
But what else? So we've seen elementary schools nationwide ditch gifted and talented education programs in the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So in DEI pushes, we've seen removal of AP classes, honors classes. In this district in 2018, in 2018 and 2019, when Auburn was looking at adjusting the GATE program, one suggestion encouraged the district to consider an inclusion model, offerings designed to challenge and engage students who have been identified as gifted, as well as students who simply feel gifted. So if we're going to build things around what we see DEI, and not necessarily how individuals might come to the podium and say what DEI is to them,
Sure.
but how we see it employed across the country.
Mhm.
That fails our students. It fails the students who are gifted, fails students who maybe aren't but can work harder. So yeah, everywhere we see these DEI programs, it leads to discrimination.
So really, just to clarify though, so that's DEI programs policy. So what we're talking about tonight is a statement about what we value. So I can definitely see your point. All the things you just mentioned, I can see us having discussions on those things if they came up. But I feel like removing this statement because it might lead to the things you just mentioned seems like a reach to me, and it seems like an unnecessary reach. Like, we're just talking about a statement on our website that reflects what we value as a district, not just a board, but as a district.
I'd be curious to see why you think we should keep it if the examples I'm providing generally lead to discriminatory policies.
You described policies.
You're right.
but
And
we're
so,
talking about a
okay, so some of
statement.
the core principles that go into and have informed DEI, right? Ibram Kendi, right? His statement on the solution to, or the resolution for past discrimination is present discrimination. He's one of the core scholars who has been promoting the DEI movement.
But I'm wondering what in this, so, because I want to drill down and be specific, because I know that DEI statements, policies is a hot button issue. I've spent a ton of time listening to podcasts, reading like research around, does it cause harm? Does it not cause harm? You can find information to support either position like very easily. Like, I spent many hours listening to both sides. I even listened to students debating it, and it was amazing and lively, right? So all of that's out there. But we're talking about just, I want to drill down on what specifically here, because that's what we're talking about removing. So what about this? Not what could happen or has happened in other places because of policies, but what about having just a statement causes harm? And what about this statement? I don't see anything in this statement that does anything other than elevate our whole community. I don't see anything that is discriminatory toward anybody or is calling anyone discriminatory. I really looked for the language, so I'm curious.
So I don't believe that DEI should be a core tenet
So
of
you're
this district.
objecting to just DEI, you're not objecting to this statement.
Oh, parts of it. So I think the idea that we should be preparing our students to be world influencers is kind of a laughable statement. I mean, influencers is just, that's such catchphrasey language that it's just dumb to put in there. But otherwise, some of these things, we're not going to be removing any, we're not going to suddenly be discriminating. We're not going to be suddenly harassing. We're not going to be not trying to respect and empower our students through agency and advocacy. We're still using student-centered approaches to decision-making. We're doing all those things. So do we need to duplicate them as well with this other statement that includes the nod to DEI as part of a broader movement, right? This is a virtue signaling statement to say
Removing it is virtue signaling as well. It's just a different kind. I mean,
we could
either way.
try to have a board policy or a board statement that went far to the other side, far to the other extreme.
We totally.
But what I'm suggesting is we just remove it, and we don't have it. You know, and there are some districts in this in Placer County. It was said that others, nobody else has removed it. Placer High School Union School District actually removed their board policy on diversity, on DEI, or excuse me, on equity last week, as well as passing a resolution protecting girls and girls sports. And then other school districts in Placer County haven't even adopted these. Yes, by protecting girls and girls sports.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
just,
That's following the law, though. I mean, Title IX is law, DEI is not law.
Yeah,
Is-
but
is
again,
basically what
I
it
feel
boils
like
down to. And this statement is very ambiguous.
I'm hearing you guys object to,
It's poorly written.
then let's write something better. I mean, I feel like this is, to me, it sounds like it comes down to DEI has a bad rap. We don't think we should have it. Instead of, we think this statement and what is contained in it does not reflect the values of our school district. And, you know, again, we have people coming out who work in the school, who are families of students who attend and are saying, but we do value things that are on this statement. So I just don't know why, again, we have to be so binary. Like we have to say, well, DEI it represents this virtue signaling and it signals this and that. So we need to remove it. Why can't we say, we want a school district that on the website reflects what we value. These are things we value. And I know you guys all value this stuff. Why can't we work together to have something? And that I think also, again, like we want to move forward as a community. We've been an amazing team. And I think the way for us to keep moving forward is to collaborate on things like this and to show it can happen and not just say you have to remove it or you have to have it, but actually we can work together on something. I just think that's important. I think our community needs that.
So what part of this then that is not captured in other areas of our board policies and products, what part in here is so important that we keep?
Well, listen, we're not going to have every single thing on that's in our board policies reflected in a statement, right? But I think having something that shows as a district we care about these things for our learners is valuable.
The bottom half, or are we looking at the top half?
I
You
mean,
think-
personally, I don't feel any objection to the whole statement. But I also would be open to us talking about if there's language that feels aversive for some reason, having a thoughtful discussion about why it's aversive and what it should say instead.
Okay.
I just don't want us to be guilty of the same thing on the other side of like, okay, well now it's out with it. Like we're so good at doing something different and we've already done that.
I mean, to that point, I think that example would be if the board brought forth a statement that was super far to the other side, rebutting all of this and imagine, fill in the blank with whatever sort of political.
Sure, but I think we could make something that doesn't feel political, that feels.
Well, this clearly is political, right? It's a product of 2020. I mean, it was passed in 2022, but clearly this is the sort of thing that got very popular to pass after 2020. And
it's popular to get rid of now. And I guess that's all I'm saying.
Some of us want to get rid of it then. Some of us opposed it
then. Sure.
So some of us didn't want to see it there.
But I think we're saying the same thing, right? We're saying that like there's our community is made up of diverse opinions. Some of those opinions support something like this. Some are opposed to it. So instead of choosing, why don't we craft something that somehow, I mean, listen, I'm not saying it would be easy but I think we could do it. Like, I believe that we could do it.
I think a better option might be for us to workshop our vision statement and our mission statement and come together on something like that rather than having, what I see as a virtue signal on our front page saying, these are the things we do. Instead of that, let's tell people what our vision is. Let's tell them what our mission is. Let's break it down and be clear and concise. This is not clear and concise. It's poorly written. There's a lot of strange language and I don't know. It's not something I agree with, but I do agree with you that we should work together to form something. Although I don't want to have a statement. I'd rather do a motto, that type of thing.
And that's probably something we should be working on is vision, mission.
Yeah.
But then I still don't see the need to maintain this as a separate.
No. I'm saying I don't think we need this. I think we define who we are through our vision and mission statement, and we don't need this here.
I know you don't, but I also am hearing a lot of people do think we need it. And I think there's the rationale, it comes from somewhere. Like I hear you that this was a politically hot moment when suddenly there was an explosion of this. Obviously, we all saw that. But I think tracing it back to why, there is a why behind that. And or it wouldn't have happened, right? And so.
Right, and there's disagreements about those whys and what led into them, right?
Sure.
I mean, some of what informed the big movement that led to the explosion of DEI statements is very debatable.
Led to the explosion, but DEI in and of itself came like in the 70s as a reaction to people being unhappy with affirmative action. And so activists said, we need to capture what this is without causing harm through some of these policies. And that's how the DEI as a phrase and as a statement, yes, it exploded in 2020 because of other factors, but just it developed in the 70s. So it's not new.
What we see though from people like Robin DiAngelo and from Ibram X. Kendi and even Kamala Harris is very different versions of what DEI is than, you know, this nice statement about how we can all get along.
Totally.
And so since that's really the common usage, I don't think there's a place here for it. But also tonight, we're not debating whether or not we're not taking any action tonight.
Right.
We're just, does the board want to bring it back?
Sure. To bring it back as so I guess, yeah. So yes, I'm aware of that. So that's why my proposal, because it sounds like the choices were bring it back as an action item to remove it. And so I'm proposing that we don't remove it, that if we do anything, that we work together as a team. Again, I feel like we can talk about this for a long time because I want to I'm not totally understanding the harm around this. So I would like, as a trustee, I would like to understand that better if we're going to remove something like that. And again, I really do believe that we could spend, I don't know how that would work. I don't know if something we could workshop at a separate meeting and then bring back, but I believe that we could talk about this in more depth and really drill down on what's in here, the language that's in here. What about it you guys disagree with? I can talk about my point of view. I think that's important. I think just removing it honestly is going to also cause more harm. I mean, this whole year we've spent building more trust with the community. And my concern is it being removed is going to cause an uproar that I don't know it's necessary. Is it worth it when we could do something different? And again,
Folks, if we could please keep it down.
For our
Thank you.
goal of presenting one day, like I feel like this is the kind of stuff. This is what we want to see.
So this statement though, for all we've heard about how good it's been, it exists at the bottom of our website. It's not printed in any school office, not included in anything else. So I don't also, I fail to see what good it has done too, right? Other than to make some people feel good. Because otherwise we're still doing the things that are in here. Removing the statement though would be suggesting that no, we don't agree that DEI is a foundational, core value system that we should be following.
It's tricky with this idea of like, you hear a lot about the virtue signaling, and it's tricky because keeping it, removing it, all of it's sending a signal. So I think that removing it, regardless, I wouldn't think this is your intent at all. I don't think that you were wanting to remove it means that you're not going to suddenly care that students with disabilities, students of color, minority groups, and in any way a minority group, students who are disadvantaged socioeconomically. I think you guys all care about that and care about access for those students in meaningful ways. I think removing it signals that you don't. And so I think, I'm not saying that's the reason to keep it, but if we're going to talk about where it's positioned and if it's, making people feel good or bad, that is also a part of it, is when you, as some people have said, when you have a school board that decides to hastily remove it, it feels hasty, but maybe you don't think it is, because I know you've been thinking about it a long time, but having it removed, I think sends a different signal as well. And again, having it on there sends a signal. There's a lot of signals being sent. We can't control how everyone's going to interpret everything, but I don't know. Again, I really like the idea of us as a board governance team signaling to our community that we hear about what they care about and that we're working together to honor that in some way, even if it's just something on the bottom of a website. I think it's valuable.
I hear you. And I feel that we should be rejecting DEI as just blanket reject DEI. That doesn't mean we're suddenly going to be discriminatory. And I think part of why some people want to see this gone is because not what you're doing here. This is actually pleasant back and forth, but so much of the response when somebody does suggest we should look at this and we should remove it is to call the person a racist, bigot, homophobe, sexist.
But no one did that today. And so
yes, they did.
Yes.
they
Go
did
back and listen to the board comments
tonight.
tonight. Yes, listen to the public comment.
Okay,
Okay?
okay.
So
I'll
that
put
happened
aside.
even tonight.
I hear you,
And
but
then go back and listen to the comments of the previous one.
the reason
right?
to remove it though, because
Absolutely.
people's reaction to
Yeah.
removing it, really?
Certainly shouldn't be an impediment to removing it.
I don't think it's an impediment, but I'm curious why it would be a reason to remove it. Why that would be why that would give it any kind of weight.
There's another.
No,
So,
no,
yeah.
listen, I'm not gonna argue that point because
Mhm.
I'm genuinely asking, genuinely, why people being mad about it being removed and their reaction to it, why that means we should remove it. I don't get that.
there's not well-articulated positions to keep it, especially when
I'm
I'm pointing
hearing
out examples of what it tends to lead to. Discriminatory hiring practices, discriminatory practices getting into schools. It clearly introduces grievance politics here.
Okay.
Like it introduces grievance politics to the foundation of our school. And so,
That's the question.
yes.
Okay, so because I'm drilling down and I am truly curious. I'm hearing what you're saying. You're saying you're objecting to this as a whole, and I'm assuming that everyone feels similarly. Maybe I'm wrong, but you presented it. You're saying you named these ways that it caused harm, mostly in colleges where this is an elementary school district, and those are all the ways that you mentioned that tend to cause harm, which doesn't seem totally quantifiable. It sounds kind of anecdotal, but even if we had the exact numbers, a statement and a policy are two different things, right? So again, if we're not talking about a policy, we're not saying we have to do grading in a certain way or we have to hire we're just saying we care that we are saying that there have been in the past in education and truly, I think we all agree on that. There was a long history in education where things did not every student had equal access. They just didn't. And so that is a part of the history of education. And so having that awareness means that we continue to implement practices that have already put into law, like you said, like things like IDEA, because that has happened in the past and we don't want it to happen again. I mean, to me, this statement says harm has been caused to students who are the most vulnerable in our society. The free, appropriate education that they're all supposed to get had barriers for some. We're aware of that and we don't want it to happen again.
Yeah, but it's still happening. I mean, we're still rejecting children, for a basic, education. I don't want to get into that, but it's still happening today. This statement doesn't protect that of what's happened in the past. I would like to see this come back. This statement was birthed out of a very heightened political, time in our country. It has no place, in our school systems, and all these things that are covered in this one particular, it's already covered, throughout our board policies and our mission statement and our statement and everything else. We don't need to double down on that because we are already doing that. So I'm in favor. I would like to see this to come back.
Come back for us to work together and modify something that works for our community, or come back
I would,
to
I,
just
I would,
remove
I
it?
would be, I would not be opposed of modifying our mission statement and doing that. I would not, I would not be opposed to that. Have a board workshop. But how it stands now, I think this is a deflection, as we've seen in the past, as we've seen in other places. It's very emotional to people, and
It
and
is on
I've
both
I've been
sides.
I've been called,
Yeah.
because I don't agree with DEI, I've been called a bigot. I've been called, all kinds of names, which I am not. I'm none of those things.
Yeah, and you know
Okay?
what?
Because
Yes,
we're living in a time.
totally.
We live in a time. If you don't agree with me, then you don't love me. That means you must hate me.
And this
Okay.
is why I love that you said that.
Yeah.
And that's binary. And this is why I think just doing away with it is feeding into that. Because I hear you, Jason. Because
Yeah.
and on the other side of it, I've been called a pedophile because it's because I was a Democrat. Like, and so I
Yeah.
mean, it shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. But I think if we just remove it, we are perpetuating that. Like, we can rename it. I don't care. Let's create our own thing.
Well,
Let's
that's
remove
and
the
we can have a board
the
workshop and do
fire
that.
from it.
And
Let's
I
do
think,
something that values our
yeah,
community.
and I think we're all in agreement on that. But in the meantime, you know what, for us to create something, create something new, the old has to go. So let's get rid of the old, let's create something
Really
new.
has to go. I think we're
Yep.
saying we need to look at it and be
Yeah.
systematic about it
Yeah.
and clear about it.
I hear you.
So I think I am hearing at least the majority wants to bring this back to consider for removal. But also that there's interest in the board having a conversation, potentially a workshop about our mission vision statements. And I think Seppi, when she worked with us on our previous special workshop, had talked about like core values. If we were to include that in the conversation.
We did talk about that, yes.
So if we were to try to have a workshop to discuss those things.
Yeah.
You want to weigh in?
Didn't weigh in a lot more than I should, but, yeah, I agree. I really don't like the way that it's worded. I really don't like the title of it. I really don't like the way that everybody made me feel that night. I really don't like the way that, it created a division in this district that we are trying to remove and create a community worth. So especially if we can, maybe even a stand strong statement or something, we're a strong district that doesn't need this to be included. So I think maybe even bring it back for a workshop or completely remove them, because I can't believe that it's bringing back the way that everybody in that audience made me feel that night. So
I just don't, I do have one honest curiosity. What about, because it just bothers me so much that this is such a hot button issue, because I think we all do care that diversity is a part of our learning community, that inclusion is a part of it. And I know you don't like the word equity for some reason, but equality, or I'm not sure which word, I can't remember which one bothers you and which one you like, but either way, it's the same thing. We all care that students can access everything about the learning environment without any barriers to their learning.
Right.
And we all agree that there have been barriers and that there can be barriers. So I don't know.
But those things are protected by federal law, by ed code. These are things we're following anyhow. It's not like we're saying we're not doing these things. We're not following the IDEA Act. We're not doing any of these things. We're not taking anything away from children by doing this. All we're doing is saying we're going to follow the law, and here's our vision and mission statement.
Is the objection that nobody wants this emphasized, that nobody wants the value of things being inclusive emphasized? Is that what it is? I'm honestly asking.
I mean,
I'm
have
trying
you-
to understand.
Yeah, I think we've discussed that some, that, I mean, across the country where we see these DEI.
The policy part.
When we see DEI policies, programs, offices, whatever, they lead to discrimination to achieve diversity, however that gets selected. Not natural diversity as things move and flow, but maybe we set quotas, right? And so that is injustice to individuals.
And it was suggested by our AUTA president tonight that we want to hire teachers that look like the students. That is not merit-based, and that is not going to accomplish us having good quality teachers in our schools.
Yeah, I would really like to hear how, removing or rejecting a statement like this actively leads to increased discrimination and widening education gaps and reducing support for SPED, because we're not going to do any of that. We're still following the laws. And quite frankly, I would suggest that part of why we see this mass exodus from public schools in California has been because of things like this that are clear left-wing virtue signaling. They've gotten pushed from Sacramento. They're just rampant throughout our public schools that aren't as strong in charter and private and other areas. And I think that has accelerated the people leaving public schools.
I'm going to disagree with you. I think charter, you see more robust statements like this in charters than you do in public schools.
Probably depends on the charter.
Yeah. Yes, depends on the charter, but yeah. I think if you really looked at all of them, I think probably the majority. I could be wrong because we're throwing stuff out.
Put my foot in my mouth, right? And so
I just think we could find enough evidence on both sides. We can find plenty of evidence for what you're saying, and I think we can find plenty of evidence for what the other side would say about having this and the positive outcomes. I mean, I did do a lot of reading today and read a ton of articles that cited some actually really great conservative blogs and publications that were like, here's the case for it. And here's the research that shows better outcomes when this is a value. So again, maybe I'm just giving a motion that I would like to not see it just removed. I would like to see us work together because I really believe that we could do something that doesn't that represents the whole community. You guys are representatives of people in the community that want to see it gone. And I'm representing people who want it to be there. And I think we don't have to be binary. I think we can do something different.
So I think maybe some of that middle ground though could be in having a workshop to discuss the mission vision statement and potentially lay out some core values that would be reflective of that. But I'd like to bring it back in August to consider for removal. It looks like we have a majority that supports doing that. And then if we could look at then a special workshop though, probably starting in August. We're not doing a regular in July. I know people have their summers planned out, but if we look at maybe August or September to do a special workshop for looking at the mission, vision, and core values.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so, okay, so I'm hearing that, we'll bring back the statement as an action item in August. And then in addition, I think we'll have a discussion information item where I can collect some information on mission and vision, board governance workshop, whether that's guided by, someone like Seppi from CSBA or what have you. I'll look into that between now and August, bring that back to the board. We can talk about it and then look at some calendar dates and schedule that following to craft something together. Is that the plan?
Or even if we could do one, maybe just if you find some good guidance for us, and then we could do it like when we went through a lot of the governance handbook.
Yeah, without a leader.
Yeah, or without a paid for facilitator.
No, I absolutely think we can do that. I'll look at some options and then maybe present them to you.
Okay.
And I can also send you guys some information between now and then if you want to take a look. And then we can have a more robust discussion about moving forward with a workshop in August.
Good deal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And then 11D, we want to recognize our certified interpreting services interpreters. I think they are still in the other room, but if you can hear us, could you come on over to this side, please? I'll go walk over.
They have to say it first.
Hi.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So you may not have seen them. They hide in another room and they translate all the things we say. And I will say, I'm sorry, I talk very fast sometimes. I know that's sometimes an issue. But we would like to present certificates of appreciation to say how much we appreciate what you've done for us this past year, or longer actually, but at least the year I've been here, in providing some access and supports for our Spanish speaking families who may be online. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no, go say it.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
Don't apologize. Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
If would you describe kind of, we're doing this because we're having.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So we've been running some data collection on who we have online attending via Zoom, and Dave's actually been collecting the data with us for us for 3 or 4 months now, at least since maybe the start of the new year. And what we have is, between 4 and 5, maybe 6 people online typically. They tend to be staff members who want to hear what's going on and stay informed, but rather do it in their pajamas at home on the comfort of their couch. You know who you are because you're listening right now. And what we have found is that there isn't a high need for translation services and potentially the ability to do some of those things electronically through all the AI advancements that have happened online now through our YouTube recordings. So translation services have continued throughout this school year, but will discontinue as of the start of next school year. And then, of course, if need comes up, we'll always address it at that point. But right now, given our data that we see, it doesn't seem to be something necessary.
I
to continue.
apologize.
Go
Do you
ahead.
mean for just the board meetings or in general? Or
Oh,
case by
good.
case?
Very good question. Just for the board meetings. We, of course, offer interpretive services for any parent that may need access. We do that. All our communication written communication will continue to go home in both English and Spanish. Given population and demographics in Auburn, we have a high population of Spanish speaking families. So we send written communication home in Spanish, and we also offer translation services in any language a family may need if they request that for things like parent-teacher conferences and things like that, or meetings or what have you. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
So moving to 12A, update on requests.
I don't have any requests at this point to provide updates on. I think we talked about things at the May 15th meeting, but I didn't have anything on my list outstanding for May 29th in case, unless anyone thought I was missing something. And then, oh, sorry, that's it for that item.
Great. Okay. And then were there new requests?
I have a thing, which you may already know about this. Brittany, do you know the PSAL thing? Okay, so I just want to make mention that I did speak with our yes
Our
at,
SRO.
at Auburn L, and she's really trying to get this program off the ground, and so she'd really like us to kind of push it and get more kids signed up, because she feels like if she does so, she'll be able to run it year round.
You're talking about Deputy Hurtubise.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and she also mentioned to me, I don't know if she's talked to you, but when she found out we were doing busing, she thought that that might be very helpful to this program to drop off kids directly to it at Rock Creek.
Because because we do offer space. The sheriff has space at Rock Creek and houses
Right.
PSAL there. Paris
Right.
Placer Sheriff's Activities League.
Yes.
I'll get that out eventually. And you had talked a little bit about that as well, Jeremy, right?
Yeah, correct. That's an option we're exploring.
Yep.
So just putting that out there because she's trying to drum up business.
Yeah. No, and I believe, if I'm incorrect, correct me, but I believe we sent out PSAL flyers in
believe
terms
so.
of
I'm not certain.
interest.
She was walking around the campus handing them out at 8th grade promotion. That was when I saw her.
I think that some of these were sent out though too.
Okay.
And maybe you're just still not getting all the
That
electronic
could be.
communications.
That could be because when we send out, we do community flyers usually twice a month. And so that goes out to kind of select all, but
Okay.
yes, if that may just be going out to parents and
I've
what have
not
you. So
been
we can
selected.
add the board. We'll select you in the future. No, that's a good point. And I can talk to Deputy Hurtubise too and make
Yeah.
sure we can Stephanie, our receptionist here, she puts together all those community publications.
Yeah.
So I can take a look at those. And if they haven't been in there, I'll reach out to Deputy
Okay.
Hurtubise and make sure we do it in the future. We actually have a decent number of kids who utilize PSAL
Yeah.
over at Rock Creek, and they do run a during the year program. Their biggest one is typically summer. It always has been. But yeah, we have had kids where they're doing some year-round programs and adding cool stuff, backpacking trips and all kinds of stuff. So jujitsu. Yep.
Yeah.
So, yep, I'd be happy to work with her on that.
And it's free. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And Jeremy, like you said, is working on some busing stuff. So I think that's a good thing.
awesome.
Yep.
That's all.
Any other new requests? Okay.
On to your comments.
Okay. So I would just like to say, we've concluded the school year. We've started our summer school and extended school year program. We had a day off, I think a whole day off of summer for everyone. And then we launched right back in on Tuesday this week. But our year really finished strong. I was very impressed with kind of where we ended up this year. I was able to attend Auburn L's promotion ceremony. I know we all kind of divided and conquered those because they were all happening at the same time. I also had the privilege of supervising the 8th grade dance that happened at Placer High, our first ever 8th grade dance to commemorate their promotion and then get to have a dance at their future school as of August. Well, your son was there, so yeah. So yeah, it was lovely. The kids had a great time. It was fun for everyone. I look forward to doing it again next year. I'm glad we got to kick it off and have them spend that time together. And our teachers just put such work into the end of year activities, whether it was 8th grade activities, field days. I mean, you name it. We had all kinds of stuff. I think everyone could sleep for a week after the month of May. But it was awesome. And I could not be more proud of what our community did together to move through this TK through 8 transition and do really hard work that was very, very worthwhile. So it was fantastic. And we started, like I said, summer school in ESY and all things, it's a relaunch because I don't think we certainly didn't have it last year. I don't know if it's been a few years or more than one, but it was definitely a relaunch. And I think as smoothly as a relaunch like that could go on the first day, and by day 2, stuff was pretty dialed. And I genuinely appreciate everyone who's working because we're staffed by our staff. We're not bringing in subs and hoping people will teach classes. We have our teachers doing the work with kids they know and smiling faces coming to school after school's already been out. So I think that's saying something. So, and it's good stuff. They're going to be doing a lot of fun things. So, so stop by and see it if you can, 8:30 to 12:30, all the way until July 9th, I think it is. So, so good stuff. I'm very proud of that. I will also do a quick, as part of my superintendent update. So, we meet every Thursday. How many meetings have we had? 45, you counted, right? But we're getting there. So, Skyridge projects, Auburn L projects that we had shade structures and what have you are all kind of wrapping and finishing up. Some of those took a little bit longer. And we all know the elephant in the room is E.V. Kane's projects, right? So we have prep work and fencing up at E.V. Kane. They're breaking ground next week is the plan. That's going to look like a lot of demo. They're starting at the back of the campus. So they're doing the larger playground, the older kid playground, and then the shade structure that'll be back there. If you've ever been to that backside of campus, and I've helped with campus monitor shortages out there, it's very hot and very sweaty on the blacktop. So they'll have a shade structure out there. And that's all starting, like I said, next week. Demo work first, then construction. I think their timeline was like 2 to 3 weeks on that project in total for the backside. And then we start on the kind of crowning achievement is the front playground, which will be TKK. And we're looking at designs for the ground cover, if you will, to be something fun and incorporate things for kids. I think end of this week, and they'll break ground as soon as they finish doing the backside first. And then we also have some ADA improvements happening, which will happen at the same time. And if we can't finish those will roll over just depending on how fast they can make it all happen. But playgrounds are happening first, as well as bathrooms and shade structures. So we're very, very excited. Should be ready for the first day of school. We're relaunching our social media account, so you will see it on there. It'll be one of the first things I talk about because I can't wait to take a picture of it and have some kids on it and be done with the 45 meetings that mostly Jeremy has had to attend this year. So
We should have all the board members, the first picture, all the board members playing on the slide.
I know we should. Yeah, I'm gonna put you at the very top, Jason. So no, but I once we kind of get that date solidified, I think we can send it out to you. And I know it's kind of summer and people might be traveling, but if you can come and see it, I think it's going to be a happy moment. So
cool.
Yeah. So I think you'll see a lot of good things happening on campus when school starts again. Dave in his new MOT position, I couldn't be more thrilled. He's the right guy to do the job. He's really good at technology and he's proving to be just as good at MNO, which may be to a fault because he got signed up for something because he's good at what he does. But he's working on a lot of campus beautification too. So all our sites are going to be happy cherry places come August. But between now and then, everyone should enjoy their summer.
Great. So first, Amber, you brought up we need to print our meeting norms and put them up. So that's something we talked about, just acknowledging that. Thanks for bringing that up and reminding us, hold us to it. I was able to make the E.V. Kane promotion ceremony. Yeah, it was fantastic. There was Jeremy, got to all of the different schools for open house, and it is great to see where we are this year and where we've come over the course of the year. So I really do extend my gratitude to our teachers, our staff, and the district. Brittany, you've done a fantastic job. Thank you for what you've done in this district over the last year.
It'd be kind of nice with all the little beautification projects to maybe test the parents and see if they notice their little Easter eggs out there. You know, like, oh, I saw the new ground outside. I was able to enjoy the Skyridge graduation, and it was amazing. I had tears, and it wasn't even my kid. So it was so awesome to see how excited everybody was for the students. It was really neat to see the students, the 6th and 7th graders there, so that they could get really excited about being the 2nd and the 3rd graduating class. And it was just, it was, like I said, I was emotional. It was adorable. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It was amazing.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to the school staff and all the teachers for, again, working so hard to make this year successful. And as a parent also of 2 middle schoolers who had a lot of feelings about this, the teachers did their best and worked so hard to make it a good transition. And really this end of the year, like you said, the end of the year activities that everybody worked so hard on. I mean, I know at Skyridge, one of the teachers like single-handedly took on an organized field day. And it's just amazing. I mean, just really like they all felt so celebrated. And so thank you guys so much for your hard work and well done.
I got to go to all the open houses too, and I was really impressed with how excited the kids were to show their families, all the things they were doing in school throughout the year. Brittany and I both attended the Auburn L graduation, and it was really nicely put together. When the kids walked in, I said, those kids are ready for freshman year. They're no longer elementary kids, they're big kids now. And they were so excited and had a blast at that graduation. But I also did want to give a quick shout out to Kathy Putke. I thought she handled herself with grace at the end of the year, knowing that she was on her way out, and she's done a great job helping Melissa move in to her new role.
Awesome. Well, excited to see all you guys back here tomorrow night. So that's all I got.
So we'll see you tomorrow at 5. It is 10:14, and this meeting is adjourned.